Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Why are you getting so hot and bothered so early? Your Ethan won't get away from you. Aren't you afraid he'll turn to her? He'll find out sooner or later. Do you think Kathy will stay with you? I doubt it. We'd both be fools. What am I supposed to do then? Drown myself? Why should I live without him? Wait, drown yourself. Daniel thought for a moment. There must be a way out. There is. Olivia lowered her voice to a whisper, looking around. And you'll go all the way out? What do you want in return? Olivia wiped away her tears. Nothing. If this case works out, we both win. I get rid of the problem, Kathy stays with me, and we can raise our children happily. And you get what you want, and you get to keep your marriage. Also make sure I never see you again or hear from you or your husband. You don't have to worry about that. Just how do I get it all to happen without being seen? I'm sure we can do it. The woman has regained her spirits. What am I supposed to do there? A class reunion. Kathy pondered, trying on one dress after another in front of the mirror. It's been 5 years since we last saw each other. They'll start reminiscing again, telling stories from their school life for the 105th time and laughing at them. Why? This is probably the best one. She decided on a strict dark blue dress made of a thin, shiny fabric. The woman pulled a matching scarf from her dresser drawer and deftly tied it around her neck. She added earrings, a ring, shoes, a purse on a thin leather strap, and spun around in front of the mirror, assessing her reflection. Then she sat down abruptly on the edge of the bed and moaned. I'm afraid to go there. I don't want to meet Ethan, and he'll be there. Lisa had warned me. Why rake up the past? And what's in the past? A youthful crush. But it's been years. Right. She jumped to her feet, tossing back the unruly locks of dark hair. I'm calm. I'm going to meet my classmates. All feelings are in the past. I just want to see the guys. Oh my God! She covered her face with her hands. Who am I trying to fool? The young woman flinched when she heard the phone ring. Kathy? The cheerful voice of a friend sounded. Kathy wrinkled her nose. Where are you? Everyone's packed. Get a cab. Come right away. Kathy didn't have time to answer as the phone buzzed, and she sighed, dialing the number of the cab. From the open windows of the cafe, music was pouring out. Former classmates were standing on the porch, smoking, talking, laughing. What are you celebrating? The driver asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. He smoothly stopped the car at the very entrance to the cafe. Homecoming. Kathy sighed. Have a good time. The driver smiled and stepped on the gas. Kathy paused for a second, gathering her strength, and walked towards her classmates. She was very worried. Her heart was racing. What had he become? She thought of Ethan. How will he meet me? She was scared and frantic to see him. The cafe was stuffy. Lisa rushed over and dragged her to the tables. I've been saving a seat for you. Sit down and have a drink. Kathy warmly greeted her classmates, exchanged a few duty phrases, but her gaze involuntarily slid around the hall in search of the one who made her poor heart flutter. He's not here yet, joyfully informed her friend. Who? Kathy asked, blushing. Ethan, you're looking for him, aren't you? I'm not looking for anyone. I'm not looking for anyone. I'm not interested in him at all. At these words, Lisa laughed and shook her head. It's stuffy in here. Shall we go and get some air? She headed for the exit, followed by the others. They stood on the porch of the cafe, exchanging meaningless phrases. "Oh, girls," one of them was surprised. "Who is it that drove up in such an expensive car?" "I don't believe it." Kathy turned her head and saw a big black Jeep, which dashingly drove up and stood in the parking lot. "Holy cow," the other girl noticed. "It's Ethan himself." The girls were talking animatedly, and Kathy's heart raced when she saw a tall, broad-shouldered, handsome brunette in a light business suit and model shoes, smiling and spreading his arms wide, walking toward them. "A man can't be so handsome." Someone laughed. "A rich groom. Do you know if he is married?" asked the first beauty of their class. "When has having a wife ever stopped you?" The girls laughed. "I don't know anything about him at all. He may be a father of many children." "The first dance with me. Please do not borrow." As they exchanged jokes, the girls ran off the porch and into Ethan's arms. "Hello, Kathy." Ethan smiled broadly at the girl. He hugged her and kissed her cheek. "Hello, Ethan." The girl trembled at his touch. Goosebumps ran down her body, and she blushed, embarrassed by his proximity. "Why are you so excited?" She scolded herself. It was just a kiss between former classmates and nothing more. But she realized that nothing had been forgotten. She was still attracted to him. "Pearls," Ethan proclaimed cheerfully, looking around at everyone. "You're so beautiful, come on. I want to drink to you." The girls, laughing, followed the young man into the hall, each wanting to be closer to him. "Well, what are you doing like you're not alive?" Looked back at Kathy, friend. "Catch up. I'm coming. The girl sighed and went into the hall. The evening was a great success. The young people were having a lot of fun. Kathy's heart sank when her gaze happened to meet Ethan's. He talked to everyone evenly, not singling out anyone for attention. "What are you, like a taut string?" Her friend interrupted her. "Distracted, relax, drink champagne, smile. Everything is great. Let's go dancing. Stop sitting around the table." Lisa dragged Kathy into the circle as light music began to play. Kathy made an effort to put on a smile, and Ethan was right there. "Kathy, I don't recognize you." He shouted in her ear, the loud music making it hard to talk. "You're even more beautiful now. I've been thinking about you." He pressed his lips to her cheek for a moment. Kathy was silent, her heart ready to jump out of her chest at the light touch, the skin on her cheek burning. She felt a silly smile spread across her face against her will, but she couldn't help it. She wanted to be with him like this all night, dancing in the darkened room. A slow tune began to play. "Would you like to dance with me?" Taking her hand, Ethan asked. "No," Kathy breathed out, her legs shaking as she felt his hands on her waist. She felt his hands on her waist and winced when he leaned over and kissed her cheek or temple, or pressed her against him, or leaned away from her and stared at her in admiration. The girl didn't notice how jealously her classmates were watching them. "Ethan still has a crush on you." Playfully, Lisa remarked as Kathy returned to her table. "Don't make that up." The girl blushed. "It's just a dance." "Friends," announced the host of the party, "our evening has come to an end. I say goodbye to you and wish to meet in the same composition in the next 5 years. School years have passed imperceptibly, leaving an eternal trace in your memory. And no matter how much time passes, I hope you will remember each other. Goodbye." The guests slowly began to disperse. Someone, having said goodbye, left alone. Someone had already found a company to continue the evening elsewhere. Kathy shuddered as she heard Ethan's voice behind her. "Can I walk you out?" "Why?" She was surprised. "I don't live far away, And how would you do it? You can't drive when you're drunk. We'll walk. The car is parked at the cafe until morning. Nothing will happen to it. Shall we go to the embankment? I don't want to part with you. Don't say no. He took her hand, pressed it to his chest. When else can we be alone like this? All right. Kathy gave in. Her sixth sense was chiming in, warning her not to accept the invitation, but she didn't heed it. A long-standing crush drowned out all reason. Why do you need a backpack? Ethan pulled the backpack out of the car and slung it over one shoulder. I think we could use it. Smiling enigmatically, Ethan said. They walked slowly down the embankment. Even silent next to Ethan, Kathy felt good. Let's go down to the river, shall we? The young man suggested when they came to a staircase that led down to a narrow strip of beach. Remember when we could sit here until morning and make out? He gave her a hand, helping her down. There under the bridge was their hiding place, protected by the concrete slabs of the boardwalk and the base of the stairs. We were teenagers, chilly. Kathy shivered in the fresh river wind. I'll warm you up. I've got this. Ethan solemnly pulled out of his backpack a blanket, a bottle of champagne, 2 glasses, and a box of chocolates. Remember when we used to sit here like this after the last exam at school and drink champagne? So much water has passed. Thoughtfully answered the girl, sitting down on the carefully confused plaid. I remember almost nothing. Why are you deceiving yourself? The young man deftly opened the bottle, poured the drink, and handed 1 glass to the girl. I see that you remember everything perfectly and have not forgotten how we loved each other. Don't flatter yourself. She took a sip of champagne. Then we were children. Today we are different. I couldn't have been wrong. Ethan said heartfelt, taking the glass from her. Look at me. He turned her toward him. The same look, the same feelings. He kissed her lips lightly. I realized today that I missed you, our conversations in front of the moon. He kissed her again, making her lose the remnants of her mind. You said it right. We are different. You are a woman. I am a man. We are attracted to each other. Why can't we give you pleasure? Ethan put his arms around her, laid her down on the plaid, and began to cover her face with hot kisses. Kathy hardly remembered how she had found herself unclothed in front of him, embarrassed by the intense, greedy gaze. I want you. He looked at her questioningly, as if asking permission. Yes, with one lip, the girl answered. They made love, and in between they drank champagne. Heated, tired, they lay side by side, open to the night sky, warm June air, and admired the awakening of a new day. I'm ready to spend my whole life with this man. Kathy dreamed, snuggled against Ethan's warm side. We'll have a big house and 3 wonderful children. He's so handsome. The girl rolled over onto her stomach and looked at the man affectionately. I love you. I still love you. You are the only man in my life. I am grateful to you for that. I didn't expect it, honestly. I thought you got married a long time ago. I've been faithful to you. I didn't meet someone who could help me forget about us, but things will be different now. That class reunion turned my life upside down. I realized I didn't need anyone else. I wish I could take it back, but I won't let you go anywhere else. You're mine. She pressed passionately against the man's naked body. Listen, Kathy. Releasing himself from her embrace, Ethan sat up. There's something I need to tell you. Tell me. The girl closed her eyes dreamily. I'm ready to listen to your voice from morning till night. Forgive me. I realize I've treated you like an asshole, but I'm married, and I'm about to have a child. A satisfied smile slowly slid off the girl's face. She didn't immediately realize what he had said. Married how? Well, married. I've been happily married for 5 years. I respect you very much and am grateful for tonight, but there will be no affair between us. Then why are you here? It's my fault, I admit it. Everything that happened between us is a mistake. I couldn't resist the temptation, the wine, the night, the beautiful woman, the memories of my youth. Anyone would, but that's it. Walk me home, asked Kathy, hurriedly getting dressed. She was disgusted with herself. Did you take offense? Ethan stood up, starting to get dressed as well. We're adults. We had a good time. Admit it, you had a good time with me. But it was a mistake. Muffled, Kathy replied. Her heart was torn apart. In 1 minute, all her dreams had been shattered. She berated herself, cursed her gullibility, and wanted to get home so she could get under the shower, washed herself off his kisses, his touch. At home, standing under the hot water, she cried she had never felt so bad. Kathy went to bed and couldn't sleep for a long time. How could he have done that to her? Daughter? Kathy heard. Come to dinner. I've cooked some fish, just the way you like it. You should eat well. You've been so pale lately. Kathy went into the kitchen, inhaled the smell of fried fish with pleasure, and suddenly clamped her hands over her mouth, only just managed to run to the toilet before she threw up. Then she stood in the bathroom for a long time, leaning over the sink, trying to cope with the spasms that came to her throat. Her hands, her legs were shaking, and her already pale face was waxy. Kathy, are you pregnant? Looking suspiciously at her daughter, Wendy asked. Yes, Mom. Hiding her eyes, the young woman admitted. That's good. Rejoiced the mother. Have you told Daniel yet? What's Daniel got to do with it? Kathy asked tiredly. It's not his baby. How could it be? Wendy stared at her in bewilderment. Who is it from? Really? It suddenly hit her. Did Ethan knock you up? You shameless girl. Did it all work out at your high school reunion? You cheated on a guy like that. Are you going to chase after Ethan like a dog again? Didn't he get on your nerves enough in high school? Even so, I love him and I don't want your Daniel. And he's ready to marry you. No, he's married. His wife's expecting a baby. I won't break up a family. I don't have the right to do that. And you keep quiet. Does he have the right to break up your life? Who'd want you with a baby? Have you thought about it? What will people say? You're stupid. You're in your 3rd decade, and you're still smart. Calm down, Mom. Kathy wrinkled her nose. I'll pick up the baby myself. Kathy. Wendy sat down beside her daughter and took her hand in her own. And you marry Daniel. Say it's his baby. It's not due yet. No one will know but us. Don't make it up. The woman snatched her hand out of her mother's grasp. I'm not going to start my family life with deceit. Daniel is not a fool. He will suspect a lie, because we have not been intimate. No. Mother spoke with determination. I won't leave it like this. He must answer for everything. Mom, don't you try to calm down. Your mom, unfortunately, cannot help. The blood clot has broken off, and this is instant death. We got there, but it was too late. Is that how it happens? In despair, looking at the nurse, asked Kathy, swallowing tears. She'd just been talking, laughing. It happens. I can call someone to come and support you. You shouldn't be alone right now. Yeah, I'll make the call. With unresponsive fingers, she dialed Daniel's number. He arrived almost immediately. What happened? The man stepped aside to let the strangers who were carrying Wendy's body out of the driveway. Yes, the woman was dead. One of them answered, Daniel. Kathy rushed towards him. Mommy's gone. She snuggled into his shoulder and sobbed. "Will you stay with her?" asked the doctor. "Yes," Daniel answered, hugging the inconsolable Kathy. "We gave her a sedative. She should sleep and come back tomorrow to do the paperwork." Later, Kathy could hardly recall the events of the following days. Daniel had taken care of all the troubles. He supported the young woman, was always by her side, organized the funeral and the wake. Kathy did not understand what was happening. She felt in a kind of prostration. On the day of the funeral, when everything was over, the young people were left alone in an empty apartment. "Daniel, thank you." The woman looked at him gratefully. "If it hadn't been for you, I don't know how I would have coped. It all came at once. Do you want me to stay with you?" "Yeah, I can't be here alone. I know I have to get used to it, but I can't yet. It's so empty without my mom." Tears came to her eyes, and she looked at the picture of Windus with the black stripe on the frame, but Daniel pulled her to him, hugged her. "Don't cry. I'm with you. I'm here for you." They stayed like that all night, hugging each other, falling asleep and unnoticed. "Let's go for a walk?" Daniel suggested at breakfast. "You need a little distraction." "I don't want to." Picking at her plate with her fork, Kathy replied, "I don't want to see anyone right now." The man looked at her affectionately. "That's what happens when people leave. We're all guests on this earth. We all have to go sometime. Wendy's gone, but we're still alive. Who's going to feel better if you sit alone all day? Do you want to get sick? Mom wouldn't praise you for that. Come on, pull yourself together. You don't understand." Kathy said in despair. "We'd had a fight with her. I yelled at her, and then she got sick. It's my fault she's dead. Our quarrel triggered the seizure." "Don't talk nonsense." Daniel frowned. "You read the report? The clot broke off. It could have broken off earlier, it could have broken off later, but it would have happened anyway. There's no way to control it. What's the point of blaming yourself for something that's not your fault? You're so good." Kathy looked at him gratefully. Daniel had surrounded Kathy with such care and attention that she felt involuntarily attracted to him. "Kathy." One evening the man confessed, "Do you know how much I love you? My love is enough for the two of us. You're alone and I'm alone, marry me." "Daniel, I'm very good to you." The woman raised her eyes to him. "And of course I'm ready to marry you, but before I do, I want to confess something." She was silent for a moment, gathering the strength to make her confession. The man looked at her with a smile. "Daniel, I'm pregnant." "What?" He tensed. Kathy could see his cheekbones set. "Who's the lucky guy?" "That's Ethan, my classmate. I could hide the pregnancy from you, but that wouldn't be fair. You've done so much for me these past few days, I just can't keep quiet. If you leave, I'll understand. I love you too much." After a long silence, Daniel spoke. "That's why I'll take your child as my own. I'll never reproach you with a word or a look, I swear. I just want to be with you always, but I have a favor to ask. Don't ever tell anyone it's not my baby. Promise?" "I promise." "Daniel, I don't know how I deserve this kind of love. Thank you for being there for me. I couldn't have done it without your support. So much has happened, so many changes in my life. I've lost my way. I really need you." Kathy said, and she believed her words to be true. "So you'll marry me?" "I think we're in too much of a hurry. Mama's just been buried. What kind of wedding can we have? We'll get married in a year," Daniel said sensibly. "In the meantime, we can have a quiet marriage. You don't want the baby to be born fatherless, do you?" The last argument finally dispelled Kathy's doubts, and she agreed. A couple months later, they were husband and wife. The woman's pregnancy had been difficult, and she hadn't left the hospital in months. During the night, Kathy woke up to a sudden twisting in her stomach. The sharp pain made her cry out. "What happened?" Daniel asked sleepily, waking up immediately. He turned on the light and saw his wife's pale face contorted with pain. "Has it started?" "Yes." Barely catching her breath, Kathy replied. "Hang on, I'll call an ambulance. And you breathe, breathe." He quickly dialed a phone number and called the medical team. "Can I help you get dressed?" "I don't feel well," the woman complained. "Don't be afraid, my dear. Everything is under control. We'll take you to the hospital, and the doctors will help you there." Daniel quickly dressed himself, collected his wife, and put out the bag he had already prepared for the hospital. When he heard the doorbell ring, he rushed to open it. "Where is the woman in labor?" Entering, the doctor asked businesslike, "Something you pale. Can you walk?" "I'll try." Daniel helped his wife up. "Ouch!" Kathy cried out, writhing in pain and clutching her stomach. "Stretcher!" shouted the doctor. A stretcher appeared, and the woman was laid down and carried into the car. "Doctor?" asked a worried Daniel. "Is she going to be all right?" "Don't worry, Daddy. She'll be fine." The car drove off, and Daniel went to the hospital after it. "Where's my wife?" he asked the girl nurse in the emergency room. They took her to the delivery room. "You're going home. There's nothing you can do for her now." "No, I'm staying." The man sat down in a vacant chair. He couldn't find a place to sit. He stood up, paced the hallway, trying to pull himself together. "Are you Kathy's husband?" The doctor came out of the door. "Yes," rushed over to him, a worried man. "Your wife's unconscious right now, and the labor's severe. You must authorize a C-section. Unfortunately, she can't." "I don't want to live without my boy." "Where is he?" "I want to see him." She sat up abruptly in bed and looked at her husband with distraught eyes. "Let me hold him in my arms." "Calm down." Daniel looked at her anxiously. "You're not yourself right now. I buried our child." "You don't understand." The woman clutched at his arm. "I want to see him. Let's go to the cemetery and open the grave. I'll only look at him with one eye. I want to memorize his face at least." "Please, please." Tears were streaming from her eyes. Her lips trembled. She was shivering. "Nurse." Daniel ran out into the hallway. My wife was hysterical. A nurse came running, followed by the doctor. Sobbing Kathy, they put her in bed, gave her an injection. She burst out, screaming, begging for the baby, her head throbbing on the pillow. After a while, the woman fell silent, sobbing pitifully, and then fell into a troubled sleep. "You go home," Daniel, the doctor, advised. "She'll sleep until morning. You'll have a hard time with her at first." "It's all right. I'll manage. It's a good thing she hasn't seen the baby. She'll forget sooner." But the doctor was wrong. Kathy didn't want to forget her baby. When she was discharged from the hospital 2 days later, the first thing she did was tell her husband to take her to the cemetery. There she fell on a small grave, wrapped her arms around it, and sobbed bitterly. "Olivia, I'm home." Ethan threw the suitcase at the threshold and went into the living room. "Where are you, darling?" "I'm back. I was so afraid I wouldn't make it back from my business trip in time for your delivery." "Here's our daddy back." Smiling Olivia came out of the room with the baby in her arms. The woman's eyes shone with happiness. "How? Already? Why didn't you tell me you were going to have a baby?" He frowned. "I would have come right away. I wanted to be there for the birth." "Sorry, our son didn't want to wait for you to come back. Won't you give me a kiss, darling? Don't you want to see our baby?" She handed the baby to his father. "How tiny he is." the man said, taking his son in his arms. He looked at the boy with fondness and tenderness, then kissed his wife. "Thank you, my love, but next time I'll never leave you alone before the birth." Ethan leaned over his son. He was so preoccupied with him that he didn't notice the shadow running across Olivia's face. "Why so sad, friend?" Lisa sat down across from Kathy at the cafe table. "What's wrong with you? Why are there tears in your eyes? Are you moping? I've been saying for ages, stop killing yourself over your firstborn for another. It's been a long time, and you still can't calm down. I wouldn't wait too long if I were you. Aren't you afraid your husband will leave you? He's such a good-looking man. He'll be hitched to some pretty girl before you know it. Did you go to the hospital?" "That's what I wanted to tell you. The doctors say I won't be able to have any more children." The woman said sadly, "The labor was hard, then complications, and that's it. I can't get pregnant again." "Is that the final verdict?" "Yes, I've had every cell examined, but the result is the same. I'm infertile." "Why, Daniel? Does he know?" "No, I don't dare tell him. I'm afraid to imagine his reaction. Do you think he'll leave you?" "I don't know. I don't care. I don't think I love him. After I lost the baby, he and I became like strangers. I don't see him much. He's got his own business. He's at work all day. I'm alone. Why do you live with him if you don't love him? It's a real hard labor. If I were you, I'd have gotten a divorce or a lover long ago." Lisa winked at her friend. "What are you talking about?" Kathy waved her away. "I couldn't even think of such a thing. I'm grateful to him for being there for me in my time of need. He's been there for me. He's been there for me. He's so good. He's easy and simple. He does everything for me. You can't get very far on gratitude. Are you really going to spend the rest of your life feeling indebted to him? Doesn't he know you don't love him? Aren't you afraid he'll find someone else to replace you? Look at what you've become like. You've completely neglected yourself, walking around like a shadow. Your husband's a businessman, and you're not groomed, wearing dark clothes. I can't remember the last time you smiled. I can't remember it myself." The woman sighed heavily. "The house is empty, no one to talk to. I don't know where Daniel gets his angelic patience from. Isn't it time to shake things up a bit? Why don't you and I go out and buy you some clothes? You're a young, beautiful woman. Don't you want to look stunning? If my husband allowed me not to save money on myself, I would have already collected a collection of clothes from the most expensive fashion designers. I'm happy with what I'm wearing. I'm not really in the mood for clothes right now. I'm sorry." Kathy got up from the table. "I should get going." "Don't wait. Tell Daniel the truth. He doesn't deserve to be treated like this." "That's exactly what I'm going to do now." "Thank you. You're the best friend in the world." The woman smiled sadly. With a heavy heart, Kathy waited for her husband's return from work. She realized that it was impossible to postpone the conversation and dreaded it. "Darling, I'm back." Daniel entered the living room with a small but very expensive bouquet of flowers. "I thought I'd treat you a little." He answered his wife's puzzled look, holding out the flowers. Just like that, no reason. "Come on, feed me." "Daniel." The woman put the bouquet in a vase and began to set the table. "I need to have a serious talk with you." "Can we save the serious talk for after dinner? I'm really tired." "Your talk, can it wait half an hour?" Kathy watched her husband eat in silence. He said something, even laughed, but the woman, immersed in her own thoughts, did not listen to him. "Kathy, was there something you wanted to talk about?" "Yes." Kathy woke up from her thoughts. "I went to the doctor again today, and I got the final report. I'll never be able to have any more children." "Is that definite yet?" Daniel frowned. Yes, they didn't give me even 1% out of 100 that a miracle would happen and I could get pregnant. I'm sorry. I'm a bad wife. Daniel got up, walked over to her, gave her a hug. You're the best, so we'll live together. There are many families like us and nothing. They live, even happy in their own way. But you dreamed of an heir. I dreamed of you. The main thing is to have you by my side. That's all I need. What are you doing up at the crack of dawn? Daniel asked, getting ready for work. I'm going to visit my mother and son. Kathy replied as she dressed. I haven't been there in 6 months, and the graves are overgrown with grass, so I need to clean them up. Why do you go there? How many times can you nurse a wound? Live in the present. Take care of the house. You wouldn't understand. Kathy replied, You haven't had him under your belly for 9 months. Do you think I'm callous? You think I've forgotten him? You're wrong. Maybe I suffer more than you, but I don't show it. What was it like for me, burying our little son? You're lucky you didn't even see him. You can't imagine how I felt at that moment. I'm sorry. Kathy burst into tears. Daniel put his arms around her and held her tightly against him, comforting her. I can't help it. I'm drawn to it like a magnet. Aren't you afraid you'll go crazy soon? What kind of person in their right mind behaves like that? I understand celebrating an anniversary, but not every month. You go there like you go to work. Why don't you do something useful or go out with your girlfriends? Why don't we make a reservation at a restaurant? We haven't been out in a while, or we could go to the countryside, you know? Sorry, I'm not in the mood. Should I lock you up? I can't stand to see you torturing yourself. Don't bother me, please. It's where I calm down. Kathy knew in her heart that her husband was right, but she was drawn to the last refuge of mother and son. She put on her household gloves, squatted by her mother's grave, and wiped the monument with a cloth. It's been a long time since I've been to your place. The woman mumbled as she began to clean up the grass. She concentrated on pulling weeds and tried not to think about anything. Well, it's good to be clean again. Now I'll go to my son, and you stay here. Hello, my darling. Kathy bent down to her son's grave. She threw the wilted flowers out of the vase and put fresh ones in. You would have been 5 years old today. She stroked the black granite monument, shivering from the cold. Mom remembers you. I'm sorry I didn't keep you safe. Sleep well. The woman stood silently by the small mound. From the outside she looked strange, all in black, thin, with a pale face, haggard with mental anguish. She looked much older than her years. The habit of speaking to the graves of mother and son in the cemetery, which had appeared in recent years, horrified Daniel. Time passed, and Kathy's mental health did not recover. Her life, like a metronome, monotonously, joylessly counted down the days. Her heart suffered from night dreams, which appeared to her if she did not come to her son for a long time. No, she could not even imagine the child's face, but from behind the vision was so clear that the woman woke up in tears, and in the morning went to the cemetery. Kathy, the woman heard one day, on her way out of the cemetery grounds. Hello, have you come to see your people? Clara, hello. She greeted the older woman, Ethan's mother, warmly. What brings you here? I buried my husband a year ago. I came to visit. I'm sorry, I didn't know Ethan's father had died. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. If it wasn't for my grandson, I don't know how I'd have gotten through all this. Olivia had a boy? Yeah, he's your age. You had a baby with her at the same time. Yes. I didn't know. Look what a nice little boy we have growing up. The woman took out of her purse a photo of a smiling 5-year-old boy and handed it to Kathy. He's beautiful. And he's so smart. Ethan wasn't like that at his age. Kathy almost fainted when she saw the picture. Her heart raced. There was something painfully familiar in the boy's features. Tears came to her eyes. No, she thought, my baby would probably look like him, for he is Ethan's son too. Oh, Kathy! Clara came to her senses. I'm sorry, you stupid fool. I was so happy I forgot you'd lost your baby. Don't kill me like that. You and your husband are still young. You'll have a baby. Baby, it's such a happiness. Kathy smiled sadly at the woman and hurried away. She knew that she would never have this happiness. Olivia, where have you been again? Ethan grudgingly watched as his wife, smiling stupidly and looking at him with eyes dazed from alcohol, took off her shoes in the hallway. At the club, where else? Did you miss me, darling? Isn't it a little late for you to go clubbing? You're not a girl. Aren't you ashamed to insinuate my age? By the way, I'm still young. What's your problem anyway? I came home a little drunk, so what? I'm not a nursing mom. It's the middle of the night and you're out somewhere. The baby wouldn't go to bed without you. What's wrong? You can't put your own son to bed. Are you used to your wife always being home? And I wanted a party, I have the right. Couldn't you do without me for one night? You're a mother, didn't your heart pound? Didn't you worry about your son? And you're a father. Olivia parried. She came close to her husband and kissed him. He smelled the scent of expensive men's cologne and wine. The boy needs a father more than a mother. By the way, I didn't say that. I gave him to you. I raised him for 5 years. Now it's your turn. Why are you picking on me? She pouted her lips in resentment. Can't I have at least one night a year to relax the way I want to? I'm sick of diapers, cradles, baby tears. But that doesn't mean you have to come home at midnight. Well, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at my watch. It was so much fun out there. The time flew by. Me and the girls had a lot of fun. You've changed a lot lately. What's going on? Nothing's going on, she shrugged. We were on vacation with some friends. Do you know how tired I am of sitting at home? The same thing every day. I want to change. I miss it so much. Okay, take your clothes off. I don't want my son to see you like this. At least let me know if you're going to be late. I'm worried. Okay, I'm going to bed. She waved her hand and disappeared into the bedroom. I don't think you love our son. Ethan reprimanded her as she lay in bed. You were doing something with the little one, but now you don't pay any attention to him, and he's bored. Don't make it up. In a sleepy voice, Olivia assured him. Just because I don't coddle him doesn't mean I don't love him. He needs a stern man's upbringing. I can see he's bothering you. What has he ever done to you? You never kiss him. You never caress him. You just yell at him. And he's so attracted to you. What's wrong with you? You were a great mom, weren't you? Leave me alone. The woman waved me away irritably. I'm tired. I want to sleep. How many times can you teach me? I know how to behave with my son. I don't need your advice. A week later, Ethan received a message that made him furious. Who's that? He shoved the phone under his wife's nose. Who's the guy in the picture next to you? Just a guy I know. She replied nonchalantly. Why are you freaking out? Why are you freaking out? I find out that my wife is cheating on me, and you pretend that nothing happened. What do you think? A light flirtation, no binding relationship. I thought I'd diversify our relationship a little bit. Are you crazy? What's wrong with you? I go out of my way to provide for you and Hunter, and you're in bed with another man. Aren't you ashamed in front of your son? What's wrong with me? You're one to talk. Olivia snorted contemptuously. Have you forgotten how you slept with your Kathy? I was pregnant then. Forget? I'll remind you. What, you don't like it? Feel how much it hurt. Did you think I wouldn't find out? You. Ethan turned pale. From where? Some kind people found her. Her mother called me and told me that you got Kathy pregnant too. And now you're claiming me. Fuck you. She's locked herself in the bedroom. Olivia, it was one time. On homecoming day. I was drunk. I don't remember how it happened. I've forgotten all about it. But I remember everything, shouted the woman. I'll never forget. You cheated on me. You didn't even have the courage to admit it. Confessed to nothing. Ethan said in despair. That night meant nothing to me. You mean you had no feelings for her? Are you an animal? Just looking for someone to sleep with? God, you can't understand. I had nothing with her. Just that night. I only had one night with this guy. What? Did I hurt your feelings? Oh yeah, you know, hurt a man's ego. Why are you taking revenge on me now, after all these years? Isn't it a little late? It's fine. You can humiliate me, curse me, but what about my son? Why are you punishing him with indifference? Or are you taking revenge for being mine? Don't twist things around. He has nothing to do with it. Lying in bed, Olivia thought back to the day she found out about her husband's infidelity. Why are you telling me all this? Ethan couldn't cheat on me. He loves me. But the conversation was interrupted by a short beep. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. He's not like that. We're about to have a baby. A sharp pain in her lower abdomen made the woman bend. A trickle of blood trickled down her legs. Daddy. With trembling hands, she dialed her father's number. Daddy. She cried into the receiver, Benjamin. Come to me urgently, my baby, my baby. I'm afraid, Daddy. I feel so bad. Don't cry, daughter. I'll be right there. Just don't hang up. I'll call the hospital. They'll come to you right away. Father ran down the corridor, followed by the doctors, and on the gurney lay pale Olivia with an IV in her hand. Dad, are they gonna save my baby? Will they? It's gonna be okay. Don't worry, sweetheart. This clinic has the best doctors in the world. I can't lose him, do you understand? I need him, this baby. You won't lose him, Benjamin assured me. No miracle happened, and the doctor's verdict was still in my ears. Olivia, girl, there was nothing we could do. We had to terminate the pregnancy. You were in danger. You had lost a lot of blood. The baby, with such blood loss, was doomed. Olivia, my daughter. Benjamin looked anxiously at his daughter. Don't kill yourself. They were saving you. And what to do? I dreamed so much about this child, and now I have to wait again to get pregnant. What am I going to tell Ethan? Ethan's a smart man. He'll figure it out. I'm sorry, but I have to tell you that you can never be a mother. I'm telling you this now so you don't have any illusions. Daddy, how's that? Why? A lot of women have abortions, they miscarry, and then they're pregnant again. Am I any worse? But not in your case, you were too far along. Don't worry, the doctor says you can always take a little one from an orphanage or go to a surrogate. There are so many options today. Are you out of your mind? I want my baby, okay? Mine. What am I gonna tell my husband? What's a family without children? She grabbed the doctor's arm. I'm begging you. Ethan mustn't know I've lost a child. Daddy, don't let anyone dare say I've lost him, or I'll. She collapsed on the pillow and sobbed. Daughter, don't even think about dying. We still have to tell your husband about the miscarriage. He has to know the truth. No, don't you dare, or I won't be able to take care of myself. You have to realize we can't keep this from him much longer. Not now, please. While he's away on business, I'll tell you when he gets back. Dad, do something. I'm begging you. Your daughter's family is on the verge of disaster. What is there to do? I'd give anything to make you happy, but there's nothing money can do. Olivia couldn't stay in the ward. She went to the hospital park, sat on a bench and cried. Woman, can I help you? Someone's hand rested on the woman's shoulders, shuddering with sobs. She raised her head. Olivia? What's wrong? What happened? She jumped up, shoved her fist painfully into Daniel's chest. It was him. It's your wife's fault. You snake. I lost my baby because of her. I hate her. I don't see what Kathy has to do with this. Sit down and tell me. Calm down. How can I calm down? Her mom called and told me that Kathy's having Ethan's baby. And you didn't know. I knew. Kathy told me right away. And you forgave her? Married her knowing she was pregnant with another man's child. Of course I love her. I had to accept her as she was. And I was stupid to be happy that he loved me. I didn't even look at the others. I was faithful. But she cried again. We had a good night out. I don't get it, Kathy. When her mother, Wendy, called, I had a miscarriage. I was pregnant too, with my husband's baby, not another man's. And now I'm never gonna have kids. Why would Ethan want me childless? He'll leave me the first chance he gets. Kathy, you ruined our family. What are you doing? Getting all hot and bothered? Your Ethan won't leave you. If he wanted to, he'd have left a long time ago. How many opportunities have there been? And Kathy hasn't given you any reason not to trust her. Aren't you afraid he'll turn on her? He's gonna find out she's carrying his baby sooner or later. Do you think Kathy would stay with you if he beckoned her? I doubt it. We'd both be fools. What am I supposed to do? Drown myself? Why should I live without him? Wait for drowning. Daniel thought for a moment. There must be a way out. There is. Olivia lowered her voice to a whisper, looking around. We can switch the baby. I don't care whose baby it is, as long as my husband doesn't find out he's not the father. I've got it all figured out. What's the time difference with Kathy? I don't know, a month or two. What's it to you? What was it supposed to be? A son? Why are you giving me riddles? You see, I don't like raising someone else's child. It'll always remind me of the affair. And you said you forgive me. Olivia grinned. Do not cling to the words. I dream of my own. If you are ready for a switch, how would we arrange that Kathy child, she is also waiting for a son, became yours? Let's restore some justice, so to speak. Let the boy be brought up by his father. He doesn't even know about him. I'm willing to sign any papers to keep the whole story quiet. And what do you want for that? Olivia wiped away her tears. Nothing. Just to get rid of the baby. If it works out, everybody wins. You get the baby and I get rid of him without blood and tears. The father gets his son. Only your wife will lose. Olivia grinned evilly. Serves her right. Don't hang on other men's husbands. She took my son, and I'll take her. In a year's time, she'll get pregnant again and have my child, and everyone will be happy. And make sure I never see or hear from you or your husband again. And in fact, let's pretend we don't know each other. You don't have to worry about that. The only thing is, how do we do this discreetly? We'll need a doctor's help, but I don't think any of them would agree to a forgery. Don't worry. The woman's got her spirits back up. The doctor I had my baby with is a friend of my father's. We'll arrange for Kathy to go to him for the delivery. He'll do everything before anyone knows I've lost the baby. I'll pretend I'm still pregnant. My dad will arrange for me to stay at the clinic. It's easier to hide the loss of the baby. You'll let me know when you're due, and the rest will be up to the doctor. Are you sure? We won't get burned. You guarantee it. Can you trust him? He'll do anything for me, and if he doesn't want me, I'll get my dad involved. So, are you ready to write a waiver right now? I can't wait to see our contract signed. Let's do it this way. I'm actually waiting for my wife to come home from counseling. I'll take her home and call you, and in the meantime, you find out what's going on. If the doctor doesn't agree, then it's not worth it. I don't want to risk it. Kathy won't forgive me if he finds out what we're up to. Don't worry, no one will find out. They went their separate ways, and 2 hours later, they were sitting in the chief of staff's office. Daniel, do you realize what you're setting me up for? The doctor was horrified by Olivia and Daniel's plan. If any information leaks out, I'll go to jail. It's a crime. It's a crime to make me childless. The woman said, It's okay. We'll grow up. He'll be no worse than anyone else. He will not go to a foreign family, but to his own father. Don't you feel sorry for Kathy? She's been dying to lose a child for a while. Think of what she's going through. Was she sorry when she was screwing my husband? I guess she didn't realize she was hurting me. It's okay. Let her feel what it's like to lose a child. Do you have any idea what would happen if the forgery came out? We'd all go to jail. If you don't tell us, no one will ever hear from us. Daniel, are you sure you're ready to give up your unborn child? You bet I am. I don't want a living reminder of my wife's infidelity. I dream of my hair, and I'm determined. Don't you feel sorry for your wife? She'll cry, she'll cry, she'll stop crying. I'll do my best to make Kathy forget about the child as soon as possible. Think about it. You're saving 2 families from destruction. Yeah, but at what cost? Taking a mother's son away from her? That's inhumane. I don't know. I'm not ready to take that step. It will be your fault if Ethan leaves me. Olivia screamed hysterically, and he'll leave me when he finds out I can't bear him in hair. For my father's sake, for the sake of your friendship, help me. I want to be happy too. Does Benjamin know what you're up to? Naturally, and he supports me in everything I do. His daughter's happiness is more important to him than anything else in the world. Mind you, your risks will be generously paid for. All right, the doctor has given up. But swear you won't back down at the last minute and keep it a secret. I don't want to lose my job. You don't have to worry about that. We both have a vested interest in silence. Where are we going to get proof that the baby died? I'll take care of the death certificate, but you'll have to bury the baby in the cemetery. I'll take care of that. Daniel looked seriously at Olivia. An inconsolable mother should be able to say goodbye to her son. Everything should look natural. I can't imagine what Kathy will do to you if she finds out the truth. The doctor said thoughtfully, You are a frightful man. She will not find out the truth. I protect the interests of my family. Shall we make a deal? Daniel extended his hand to the doctor, who shook it. Olivia was satisfied, smiling triumphantly. Here it is, payback for the sin I committed 5 years ago. They say God sees who offends whom, and what a dear price I will have to pay for my deception. The woman thought when she heard the diagnosis. Olivia, I'm being completely honest with you. Uterine cancer is a scary and insidious disease. Unfortunately, surgery is not an option. Treatment must begin immediately. Is 2 days enough to take care of everything? After that, there will be a long and difficult path of treatment and rehabilitation. You'll be in the hospital for a long time. I'll be fine. On stiff legs, the woman left the office and sat down on a chair in the corridor. Fear squeezed her heart with a merciless hand, It became difficult to breathe, and tears flowed and flowed from her eyes. "A woman?" asked on the way a nurse who ran past. "Do you need any help?" "No, thank you. No one can help me now," she thought. She got up and walked to the exit, dialing a number on the way. "Kathy?" she asked in a shaky voice. "It's Olivia. We need to talk. It's urgent. When can we meet? What do we have to talk to you about?" Kathy was surprised. "I have a confession to make about you and Ethan. Come on tonight after work. Although I don't see what Ethan and I have to do with each other. It's been a while. Don't say no. It's a matter of life and death. I'll call you and tell you where I'll be waiting. There's no forgiveness for me. I must confess what I've done." Olivia said on the way home. "If I'm going to die, I want to get the stone off my soul. Did I think then that the boomerang of fate would catch up with me and I would be so cruelly punished? But how will I tell her that I stole her son? How will I explain that I colluded with her husband?" The woman fumbled around the apartment, not knowing what to hold on to. "No, I can't tell her. I'm afraid to see the hate in her eyes, to hear her curse at me. She won't forgive me anyway, and I don't need her forgiveness. The main thing is to get the boy back to his real mother. What do I do? There must be a way out. Stop!" She stopped abruptly. "I'll write a letter? That's right. I'll write a letter now and give it to her when I see her. I'll ask her to open it when I go to the hospital. That's right, not before. Just a page of handwriting." Olivia grinned bitterly, half an hour later, rereading the letter. "And therein lies my sin and Kathy's happiness. Now I must call Daniel. I will explain everything to him. He'll understand that I can't do otherwise." "Olivia?" Daniel was surprised to hear from her, as they hadn't seen each other since that memorable day. "Did something happen? Didn't we agree to keep our acquaintance private?" "Daniel, I can't keep quiet anymore. I've decided to tell Kathy." "Wait, what do you mean you've decided to tell her?" "We swore we'd keep it quiet." "I'm sorry, circumstances have changed." "What circumstances?" Daniel was furious. "Have you forgotten how I saved you from the loony bin? And now you've decided to dump me? You promised me that Ethan or his little brat would never show up on my horizon again. Everything was fine, and now what? I'm gravely ill. I may not have much time left in this world. I don't want to leave with the guilt of your wife. If you've decided to destroy your family, I won't talk you out of it. But leave us alone. Leave me out of this. I'm not going to repent. You can't stop me. I've written a letter to Kathy and arranged to meet her today. I can't keep the secret any longer. I feel my illness, payback for the crime." "Olivia, what are we doing on the phone?" Daniel was on edge. He wanted to strangle Olivia, but he decided to try to talk her down. "Why don't we meet like good old friends? We'll sit in a cafe. I'll buy you a coffee and we'll talk about it. I know you're not yourself right now. We'll think together how to resolve our situation with dignity, so no one gets hurt. Tell me where to meet you. You can't talk me out of this," Olivia said, getting into Daniel's car when he picked her up at her house an hour later. "I've thought it over. Don't you think we should make decisions like this together? Aren't you afraid you'll suffer the same fate? I'm sure the illness is punishment for a mistake I made. Tell me the heavens are angry with you. Don't be ridiculous. Are you really going to tell my wife everything as it is? Your wife and my husband?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I can't tell her to her face. I wrote a letter." "Is the letter with you?" "With me. You wouldn't believe it, but I felt so much better. I've only just realized what you and I have done. How could I ever think of taking a baby away from its mother? And you, what have you done with your wife's life? I saw her at the cemetery the other day, more beautiful in her coffin. None of your business. Give me the letter, I'll see what you wrote. The truth. Everything as it was. I don't believe you'd do that. Is he bluffing? What do you want? Money, how much? I have a good business, I can share it. How much is your silence worth today? I'm not interested in money. I'm determined to get my child back to her mother. And here, she waved the letter in front of Daniel's nose. A confession. Give it to me now. He tried to grab the envelope. I won't, and anyway, where are we going? Out of town. You don't want anyone to see us together, remember? We don't know you. Watch the road. Slow down. What's wrong? Did you change your mind about dying? He's speeding up on purpose to tease her. Give me the envelope. Even if you take the envelope from me, I'll still open Kathy's eyes. Let her know what kind of monster she's been living with for so many years. Do you think she'll stay with you after all this? One phone call, one letter, and the myth of a happy family life will fall apart. Oh, you little bitch, are you blackmailing me? Daniel only took his eyes off the road for a moment to snatch the letter from Olivia's hands, but it was his fatal mistake. Hey, the woman screamed, instinctively covering her head with her hands. At breakneck speed, the car flew into the oncoming lane. Daniel tried to turn the steering wheel. The side wheels caught the edge of the asphalt. Gravel burst out from under them. The car was thrown up. A split second later, the car collapsed to the ground. The wheels were still spinning frantically, humming. Get an ambulance, police, firemen. Immediately, a crowd gathered. People tried to pull the injured out of the car lying on the roof. But Olivia and Daniel did not see or hear it. Their bloody bodies were lying on the roadside, waiting for the police to arrive. The terrible accident had happened just a few minutes ago on a country highway. Kathy leaned back tiredly in her chair and almost dozed off, listening to scraps of phrases from the news. According to eyewitnesses, the culprit was the driver of a foreign car who had swerved into the oncoming lane of traffic. Apparently, the speed was too high because the car was thrown into the air. According to preliminary data, there were 2 people in the foreign car, a man and a woman. Both are dead. Their identities are being established. Suddenly, the phone rang. Hello. Shaking off her drowsiness, the woman spoke. Kathy, you need to come over for identification right away. I'm sorry, but according to our information, your husband was killed in a traffic accident. We need to make a positive identification. Wait, you're wrong. The husband should be at work right now. He wasn't going anywhere. We found an ID in your husband's name in the victim's car. Only you can confirm or deny our assumptions. So come on down. There's been some kind of horrible mistake. Kathy stared at the phone in confusion, where short beeps were heard. This can't be true. Daniel is a good driver. What would he be doing on the country highway? Maybe he loaned his car to someone. That would explain the ID. I'll call him now and find out. The woman dialed Daniel's number. The subscriber's phone is switched off or out of range. A mechanical voice said, No, it's not him. Definitely not him. She packed quickly, hailed a cab, and headed for the morgue. Ethan? Kathy was surprised to see her former classmate at the entrance to the dingy gray building. What are you doing here? Probably the same as you. I'm here for the lineup. My wife, she was in your husband's car. How? Do they know each other? I didn't know. Neither did I. Maybe it was an accident. Come on, they're waiting for us. Kathy opened the door with determination. Come in. A stern-looking pathologist was watching the lineup closely. Are you ready? I'm ready. She still couldn't believe that under the white sheet with the license plate on his leg lay her husband, but it was too late to back down. "Daniel," she whispered, seeing her husband's pale face. The woman swayed. Ethan supported her under her arm. "Now you." The man turned to Ethan and pulled back the sheet. "Yes." In a husky voice, he said, "This is my wife, Olivia. Come with me. I'll give you the dead men's belongings." Both were given small boxes. The man and the woman went outside. "Kathy, are you going home?" "Yes, although, to be honest, I don't want to go back, and the house is huge, and now without Daniel, it's empty. We dreamed of having a big family, but it didn't work out." "Kathy," Ethan stopped. "It's good to see you. I'm sorry we met under such sad circumstances. It was good to see you, too. How long has it been since we've seen each other?" 5 years? "Yes, 5 years." The woman opened the car door. "I'm sorry. I have to go. I should go, too. My son's waiting for me at home. I have to tell him somehow that my mom's gone. You're lucky you have a son, and I have a son." Kathy hurriedly got in her car and drove off. "Kathy?" She stood by the fresh mound of flowers and stared at her husband's portrait, unconcerned. "If you need anything, call me. Don't be shy. Shake her hand, Daniel's friends." "Thank you." Like a robot, the woman responded to condolences. "How young?" The acquaintances shook their heads sympathetically. His business was so strong, so promising, but it just rose and burned down at its peak. Business partners were saddened. Heaven takes the best, and your husband, Kathy, was a reliable man. She longed to be left alone to think in silence about her life. Unnoticeably in the troubles of organizing the funeral, wake, registration of documents, 40 days passed. Kathy thought with horror how she would survive the necessity to gather again all these unfamiliar and completely unknown people who would again say something about her husband. She didn't want to see anyone. Why all the speeches, the wake, if the man was gone? She asked Lisa. It was the custom. She shrugged her shoulders. The question I'm most interested in is how Olivia ended up in the same car as my husband. I don't think we'll ever know. She asked me to meet her. Kathy suddenly remembered. I wonder what she wanted to tell me. The woman hardly waited until the end of the dinner, respecting the propriety, said goodbye to everyone, thanking them for their sympathy for her grief. She gave orders to the waiters and hurried home. Kathy, a representative man in a strict business suit approached her. May I give you a ride home? I'd appreciate it. She said yes and got into a brand new black Jeep. Kathy realized that this gentleman had something serious to say to her. Otherwise, he would not have offered to help her. What do you want from me? She asked directly. Your husband has a huge business, and you are the sole heir to his fortune. Why should a fragile woman take on the headache? Besides, as far as I know, you've never taken any interest in your husband's business. Is there anything in particular you'd like to offer me? I'd like to buy your business and give you a quiet life and keep you out of danger. What makes you think I'm in any danger? Because, fair lady, your husband's business is a tidbit for all those who have assured you today of their readiness to help you if you have any difficulty. Why should I believe you? You have no other choice. I have no reason to deceive you. I'll give you a good price. Not at a loss, I admit, but I'll buy your whole business so you don't have to sell it off piecemeal. If you turn me down, your husband's former partners will swoop in and start tearing your business apart, and everyone will try to get their hands on you, and believe me, you won't be able to resist them. What if I don't want to sell? Then they'll use some less than legal methods. You know what I'm talking about. Kathy went cold when she realized what I was saying. And none of them will discount the fact that you just lost your husband. They don't give a damn about you. Nothing personal, just business. They're bargain hunters. They're used to making a profit. Had I convinced you? I can expect to be able to buy your husband's business in 6 months when you inherit it. To be honest, I decided to sell everything at once. Kathy said, looking out the car window. Raindrops slowly dripped down the window. Nature mourned with her for her husband, her failed family life, the loneliness that already had an iron grip on her. I want to get away from here. It's hard to come to a house where we were happy in our own way with my husband. I hope I can make a fresh start. That's great. Stopping in front of the house, the man said, Then I'll contact you myself or send my lawyer. Kathy entered the house. She was stunned by the ringing silence. To break it, the woman turned on some music, undressed, and got into bed. No more souring. She said to herself in the morning, It is time to put the house in order. It is necessary to collect her husband's things and give them to some social service. What if someone could use them? She had a quick breakfast and started cleaning. Going through the papers in her husband's study, she came across a box that had been given to her after Daniel's death. I wonder what's in there, she said, lifting the lid. A watch, the face broken. I gave it to him last year. Wallet, bank cards, money, everything is there. What's this envelope? She twirled it in her hands in surprise, a white mailing envelope with no address, blood caked on one side. Who was it intended for, this unsent letter? Kathy cut open the envelope with a paper knife and pulled out a triple-folded piece of paper. Kathy, she read it. Strange, a letter for me? But from whom? She glanced at the signature. Olivia? Kathy, I didn't have the heart to tell you to your face that I'm a vile creature. I ruined your life. Now I'm trying to make some kind of excuse to you, even though I realize I'm unforgivable. 5 years ago, I robbed you of your son. I know how crazy I sound, but I was driven by revenge at the time. I couldn't forgive you for sleeping with my husband. I lost my child. I was sure Ethan wouldn't stay with me. He wanted an heir. I couldn't give it to my husband anymore. The doctors diagnosed infertility. And then we met Daniel. He didn't want to put up with your infidelity either, even though he assured you otherwise. Somehow we agreed to have your son registered in my name. At that time I thought I was doing everything right, protecting my family, but one day you have to pay for your mistakes. I'm very sick right now. I don't know if I can make it. But in the eyes of God, I'm gonna try to make it right. I know Ethan won't forgive me. I've done too much wrong. At least try to understand me now. I've been a good mother, but I haven't been able to forget who son Hunter really is. He's yours and Ethan's. Forgive me if you can, and try to be happy. I sincerely wish it for you. Olivia. Hunter. My boy's name is Hunter? Kathy rushed like crazy to get dressed. I'm going to see him at once. I don't know how that's possible. She dropped everything and went to Ethan's. You? He exhaled when he saw her on the doorstep. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm glad. Come in. I really wasn't expecting guests today. I didn't come to visit. Kathy, worried, entered the living room. I brought a letter to read, your wife's confession. She handed him a letter. Read it, and then we'll have to decide what to do about it. This. The man was speechless when he read the letter. Are you sure it's the truth? Would a man who might be on death's doorstep lie to himself? That's why your wife was in Daniel's car. I wouldn't give Olivia's confession so much credence. Yes, she's changed lately. Yeah, she's been cold to Nate. But how did they set it up? I think Olivia's father had something to do with it. I don't think they'd do the forgery without Benjamin's support. Benjamin won't be able to find out anything. He had a stroke right after Olivia's funeral. What are you suggesting? I want to see my son. Wait, I'm not gonna let you traumatize his psyche. He just lost his mother, and you show up. In fact, I need proof that you're his mother. A letter written by Olivia in some obscure state of mind is not proof. You want me to take a DNA test? I'll do it. Immediately. I have nothing to hide. I want to prove that Hunter is my son. They immediately went to the clinic, took the tests. Kathy couldn't bear to wait for the results. A few days later, they met again. Kathy, I congratulate you. The probability that you are Hunter's mother is over 99%. Ethan stood there like a thunderstruck man. Kathy broke into a smile. I knew it. I felt it was my boy. You can't fool a mother's heart. I felt him the day your mother showed me his picture. I recognized my features in him, but it seemed wild to me then. They left the clinic together. Shall we go to the cafe? Ethan suggested. We have a lot to talk about. What are we going to do? I want to raise my son. It'll be hard for you to handle him. You're a man. I want to feel like a real mother. You can't deny me that. I hope we can work this out between us without lawyers. I have to think this through. I have to do the paperwork. What's to think about? I just want to see my son. You can't deny me that, can you? No, not today. My head's still a mess myself. I have to talk to him, explain it to him somehow. Here's what we'll do. Tomorrow we'll meet at my house. You'll talk to him. You don't know if he'll be able to take you in. All right. Kathy agreed, though she wanted to hug her son with all her heart, but she realized Ethan's reasoning was correct. I'm sure Hunter will accept me, not right away, of course, but at least I'll be near him. The next day, the woman bought a huge, soft teddy bear and went to visit. Come in. Ethan stepped aside, letting her into the house. We're waiting for you. Hello, little one. Kathy looked at the exact replica of Ethan. Curls of hair just like hers were neatly combed. The boy eyed his unfamiliar aunt warily. She held out the bear to him and smiled broadly. The little boy smiled back and accepted the toy. Kathy did not make an attempt to hug him, afraid to scare him. She decided not to rush things. You're doing great, Ethan praised her. I was afraid that you wouldn't stand up to him and rush to hug him. He invited her to the table, their son playing nearby. After a while, the child sat freely on Kathy's lap, and she stroked his hair fondly and inhaled the unique scent of childhood. I should probably go, the woman said hesitantly. The baby needs to go to bed too. Will you come again? Hunter asked hopefully, looking at his mother with brown eyes. Do you want her to stay with us forever? Unexpectedly, Ethan blurted out. The boy jumped up, clapped his hands, and then hugged Kathy's legs. She picked the child up, held him to her, kissed him, and cried. Why are you crying? Smiling, Ethan asked. Go put your son to bed. I'll set the table. 15 minutes later, the woman returned, a happy smile wandering on her face. He fell asleep, she said. I had to remember the fairy tales I read as a child. He's very curious. That's what your mother used to say.
Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. Miranda walked home excitedly. Today, she had to tell her parents that she wanted to marry a young man. The 19-year-old girl knew that her choice would not please her father and mother, as they wanted to see a wealthy spouse near their daughter. But Sebastian was not such a man. Miranda met Sebastian 6 months ago. She was walking along the seafront with a friend when two guys approached them. The young men offered to spend leisure time together. That evening, Miranda immediately refused. But here Buddy Kelly wanted to communicate with the guys, and eventually the acquaintance took place. Young people walked together for a long time. While telling funny stories from life, Miranda immediately liked one of the guys, whose name was Sebastian. The girl also noticed that she also sympathized with him. She saw the young man addressing her most often. After a while, Miranda looked at her watch and told the company that it was time for her to go home. The guys sighed sadly and tried to convince the girl that they could stay a little longer. However, Miranda was adamant and told her new friends and her friend, "I don't want to upset my parents. If I told them I would be there no later than 22 o'clock, I have to keep my word. But you can call your mom and explain the situation. Just say you want to hang out with cute guys for a while," Sebastian said with a smile at the same moment. Miranda looked at the guy, who was waiting for a response from her. The girl wouldn't mind doing it herself, but she didn't want to hear various questions about her new acquaintances from her parents later at home. So she spoke with a shift in her voice. "I will not change my decision. I'm going home, and you can continue chatting with Kelly. And I can also say that we can go for a walk the next day, but we just need to agree on a time." "That's not a bad idea," Sebastian exclaimed. "Then I'll walk you home, and my friend will walk your friend home." All agreed to this proposal, and then the young men split into pairs. Sebastian went to see Miranda off. On the way, he asked the girl about her hobby life, how she plans to arrange her fate in the future. Miranda told that she is the only daughter of her parents. Her father is engaged in entrepreneurship, and her mother works as an accountant in a bank. The girl also said that she is studying to be an economist and wants to follow her mom's footsteps. And at the end of her story, she added that she dreams to marry a good man with whom she will live all her life. Soon the couple approached the girl's house. They stopped near the entrance and were about to say goodbye, as she said with surprise that she told everything about herself, but she herself knows nothing about the new acquaintance. Sebastian smiled back and said, "You'll find out about me, but not today. We'll have an excuse to meet tomorrow and go out again. That's where I'll tell you all about me. By the way, I'll just ask you to leave your phone number. There may be a force majeure, and I won't be able to make the meeting. In that case, I'll call you and warn you." The couple exchanged phone numbers, and the girl ran home. All that evening, she thought about her new acquaintance and mentally imagined how they would meet again tomorrow. Miranda also wondered what kind of person Sebastian was. At first glance, the young man seemed like a decent guy. However, she had already heard of such suave and nice guys who were rarely with us scoundrels, and slugga in her thoughts, and did not notice how the clock struck 0 o'clock, and Lisa's mother came to see her, who asked why her daughter was still awake. The girl immediately replied, "Mom, go lie down, and I'm going to lie down now. Good night." The next day came. Miranda had expected a call from her new acquaintance, but the phone was silent. The girl thought sadly that the guy had not kept his word. It means that we should not expect anything good from him, because he did not fulfill his promises. In the evening of the same day, Miranda was getting ready for bed when the phone rang. She looked at the number and noticed with delight that it was Sebastian. The girl picked up the phone and, holding back the happy notes, she said, "I hear you're angry. I can hear it in your voice, no offense. But I didn't have a chance. I came from work. I thought I would lie down for an hour, and then I'll call you. But I was tired and fell asleep. When I woke up, I called you right away. Let's reschedule our meeting for tomorrow. It's my day off. How would you like that? It's a deal. I hope that tomorrow you will not sleep all day like a bear in winter." With a smile, the interlocutor spoke back. The next day, the young people met. They wandered through the streets and talked about different topics, and at one point the girl turned to the guy, saying that he promised to tell her about himself. And so far, he hadn't done so. Sebastian smiled and asked, "What exactly would you like to know?" I've told you everything about myself. I am waiting for it from you." The guy in response suggested the girl to go to a cozy cafe. As soon as the couple sat down at the table, and Sebastian ordered 2 coffees and a couple of pieces of cake. Only then began to talk. The young man told that he came from the village. He has a mother and a younger brother. His father abandoned the family a few years ago. And also the guy said that he is 24 years old and he works at the construction site as a laborer. In the city, he rents one room with a buddy. The girl listened attentively to the new acquaintance, and when he stopped talking, she asked how much the guy plans to live this way. Sebastian looked at the interlocutor in surprise and asked how in such a way. "Well, you will eventually fall in love and want to start a family. Will you take your wife to a rented room where your buddy also lives?" "Of course not. We'll have to live for that moment. Now, let's drink our coffee. It's getting cold. While I was telling you about me." After that date, Miranda began to see her boyfriend often. The girl realized more and more every day that she was attracted to this guy. She often thought about what would happen to their relationship in the future and worried that they might break up. The young people had been dating for 2 months. The girl's mother noticed that her daughter had changed recently. The woman tried to find out from Miranda what was going on with her. However, Miranda guffawed and said that spring brings her thoughts, and that is why she is often in prostration. Lisa was not satisfied with her daughter's answers, and the woman sternly said to the girl, "You're always making jokes and don't realize that your father and I are worried about you." "Mom, I promise that in the very near future, I'll tell you and Dad everything. Don't worry about it, but I'm actually doing really well." Miranda. She told her lover about this conversation. Sebastian calmly listened to the girl, then hugged her and quietly in her ear made her a marriage proposal. And Miranda, hearing these words, immediately enthusiastically responded with consent. After the proposal of the guy, the girl thought about the fact that now it is necessary to introduce the chosen one to her parents. She realized that Sebastian for her mom and dad will not be the best candidate for a spouse. And now the girl went home to warn her parents that she was going to get married. Soon Miranda was sitting in the hall and told her mother and father about meeting her lover. The girl did not hide from her relatives who the young man worked and that he was from the village. Miranda's mother, hearing the words of her daughter, was outraged and said, "Your boyfriend probably won't be able to string 2 words together in a conversation. Are you going to marry him? Come to your senses and don't embarrass your father and me." "Mom, is social status all you care about? What about feeling? I love this man. You imagined it. It's not love. A couple of months will pass, and then you will regret that you wanted to tie your life with this guy." The head of the family intervened in the dialogue between mother and daughter. The man turned to his wife Kelly. "Why did you immediately hawk our girl? Let's get acquainted with this young man initially, and then we will already draw conclusions." Miranda looked gratefully at her father, who stood up for her. And then the girl ran to her room to notify her favorite person that an acquaintance was about to take place. Sebastian listened to the chosen one and promised her that the meeting would be on the heights. Soon enough, the acquaintance took place. Miranda was very worried when she brought the guy to her, but her anxiety turned out to be in vain. Parents liked the young man, especially the girl's father. However, although Lisa approved of her daughter's choice, but after Sebastian left, she said to her husband, "I don't know about you, but it seemed to me that this guy wanted to settle down in life more than to start a family." "Why would you say that? I can't hide the fact that I don't like Sebastian working as a laborer, but it's fixable. As soon as we get married, I'm gonna take him in, and I'm teaching him the ins and outs of entrepreneurship." "I don't know, honey. Why would I think that? Maybe it's just a woman's intuition. Okay, you and I have already authorized the marriage. Now we have to get ready for the big day ahead of us." Soon the young people applied to the registry office and then began preparations for the wedding. All expenses for the wedding fell on the shoulders of Miranda's parents, as Sebastian's mother received a small salary and could not help financially, and the groom himself had no savings. Sometime later, the wedding took place. Miranda's parents gave the newlyweds the keys to a two-room apartment. True, not in the center of the city. Sebastian and his wife were happy that they would start their family life not in a rented apartment, but in their own home. A couple of months later, Miranda's father put his son-in-law to work for him. Sebastian plunged headlong into his new responsibilities. The young man was interested in learning the skills of running his own business. Sebastian hoped that in the future his father-in-law would give him his own business, and he informed his wife about it. Miranda smiled at her husband and said, "My dad has already hinted to me that as soon as you and I give them a grandchild, he will sign over his business to you. So what we will slowly start practicing, conceive a child from this day onwards with increased zeal. I don't want to rush into it as I want to graduate first and then become a mom. In the meantime, I'm gonna be on birth control. You're a strange wife. All women get married and want to be moms, but you want to get an education. I'd rather be weird, but I'd rather be loved by you. I hope so." Sebastian squinted his eyes and looked at her husband slyly. Sebastian laughed and nodded in agreement, and then began to shower the young woman's face with tender kisses. Several years passed. Miranda graduated from the institute and got a job at her mother's bank. The young woman wanted to live with her husband for another year for herself, and then they would think about children. And Miranda said to her husband, "Let's wait with the child for another year, so that I can gain experience at work." "I don't agree with that. I made concessions to you when you wanted to get an education. Now, why don't you respect your husband? I'm sick of being your father's boss. I want to be my own boss so I don't have to listen to your daddy's instructions." "All right. I'm not gonna cross you. I'm gonna stop taking birth control. I'll see what happens." A few months after that conversation, Miranda found out she was pregnant. She realized this because she was constantly embarrassed, and the young woman felt weak. Miranda went to the antenatal clinic, where the doctor congratulated her on the fact that soon she will become a mommy. Miranda immediately informed her husband about it, who enthusiastically accepted the news, and after the first emotions of soon becoming a father, asked her husband if she had told her parents. The girl responded to her husband's words, "Are you the first to know about it? The parents should come the other day. That's when we will tell." Soon Kelly and her husband already knew about the pregnancy of their daughter. The parents of the girl were unspeakably happy that they will soon become grandparents. Miranda's father, as he learned the news, then told his son-in-law that, as promised, he would soon rewrite his business to him. Time was running out. The first 3 places of pregnancy Miranda went well, but the second 3 places there were complications. The young woman spent almost the entire time in the hospital. Miranda was very worried about the baby's condition and prayed to the Almighty that the child would be born healthy. Miranda was born before the due date. The young woman had to stay in the hospital for some more time after the birth in order for her daughter to gain weight. Miranda was okay with how much time she had to spend in the hospital bed just for the baby girl to get stronger. Soon the young woman was discharged from the maternity hospital, and she came home. The spouse prepared for this event. Sebastian equipped the second room as a nursery. While Miranda was in the hospital, the girl was happy that the chosen one was so responsible for the birth of a daughter, who was named Cindy. A month passed, as the young couple had a daughter, Miranda, with pleasure immersed in the role of mom. The young woman tried to manage everything, while her husband was at work. She was engaged in household chores when the daughter was sleeping, and when the baby awake, all the attention was given to her. At the same time, she did not forget about her husband, and another month flew by, and her husband came from work in a bad mood. And Clara immediately noticed it and wondered what happened. Sebastian gloomily looked at the chosen one and softly said that her father for some reason does not fulfill the promise. The young woman looked perplexed at her husband and asked what he meant, and immediately heard the answer, "Your father promised to give me the business, and still does not say anything. I asked him about it, and he said we should be patient. Why should I wait for anything? He made a promise he doesn't keep, and that's not what real men do. But wait a minute to criticize my father. Maybe something happened if he asked you to wait. Go ahead and defend your daddy." The man said angrily, "Don't be angry. I'll talk to my father and find out everything." The next day, the girl called her father and asked him to come when her husband was away. The father was surprised by his daughter's request, but fulfilled Miranda's wish, and soon a conversation took place between David and his daughter. As soon as Miranda saw her father, she asked him why you don't keep your word that Sebastian gave you. "We're going through a business crisis, and if I give the reins to Sebastian, everything will collapse. I've explained this to him many times and told him to wait a year until things get better. But I understand that Sebastian has decided to go through you. I didn't expect that from him. My husband's understandable too. He's been given his word, and he wants his father-in-law to keep his promise. I said I would. Now, as compensation, I can offer you ownership of my Sebastian automobile. In principle, I'll talk to my son-in-law about that myself. But how will you be without a car? We'll figure it out. The main thing, you do not worry," David said softly in response. After a while, Sebastian already drove a foreign car, which was given to him by his father-in-law. Miranda was glad that her father had found a way out of the situation and did not quarrel with Sebastian about the business. The young woman wanted there to be no misunderstandings between her husband and her parents. Years flew, and Cindy turned 3 years old. Miranda immediately gave her daughter to a kindergarten so that the girl could learn to communicate with her peers. During this time, David never gave the business to his son-in-law. Miranda often had disagreements with her husband about this, and when there was another conversation on this topic, the young woman exclaimed in her heart, "I have the feeling that you married me just to become the owner of your own business. Don't be absurd. I just don't like it when words are thrown to the wind." Sebastian said sternly, "But wait, I'm not the one who promised you this. What about my father? And you're the one who's always harassing me. Take me, and like a man, talk to him about it." "I have, and repeatedly. Your father has only one answer, that it's not time yet." A few more years flew by. Cindy started first grade. Sebastian also worked under David. Miranda worked at the bank where her mother worked. The young woman dreamed of climbing the lending institution career ladder, but she did not succeed because her daughter was often sick with colds and therefore take a sick leave always had to Miranda. Her husband flatly refused to sit with her daughter when not to say hello. And once again, when Cindy caught a cold and Miranda again took sick leave, she sat with her daughter at home and played cards, waiting for her husband from work. When her spouse was gone for an extended period of time, Miranda called her chosen one. He answered that he had an emergency at work, and he would come home late. The girl asked what happened on the life partner, did not answer, and hung up. The same thing was repeated the next day. Miranda was in the dark about what was happening at her husband's work. She decided to find out from her father. She called her dad. The young woman called her dad and inquired about the emergency at work. To Miranda's surprise, Miranda's father said, "We are doing fine so far." "What's wrong?" The daughter told David what her husband had told her and about his delays at work. And the father, hearing Miranda's words, was surprised and said that Sebastian was leaving after working hours, just like him. When the girl found out about it, she was furious because her husband deceived her. Miranda waited for her husband after talking to her father, and as soon as he appeared, angrily asked him to explain his delays at work. Sebastian began to talk about the emergency. His wife interrupted him and said that she had recently talked to her father. Sebastian frowned. After that, and with irritation, I said, "Do I have to report to you? I can have my own personal space to use as I please. Do you have a family? Maybe you have a mistress. You're talking nonsense again. Let's go to bed." "I'm not going to sleep. I had dinner at the cafe." "Who were you at the cafe with?" "Miranda and her friends." With irritation muttered the spouse. "Why don't you invite those friends to visit us? Are you even a smart woman or not? You haven't forgotten that our daughter is sick." Everyone ended the conversation. After this conversation, Sebastian started coming home on time. However, the man became estranged from his spouse. Miranda realized that there was a rift in the family. She tried to talk to her husband, but Sebastian said that he did not want to talk about it. The woman was in despair and turned to her mother, telling her about the situation in the family. Lisa calmed her daughter and promised that she would talk to her son-in-law on the subject. However, the woman did not talk to Sebastian herself and asked her husband to do so. David, hearing his wife's request, furrowed his brow and softly said, "I have spoken to Sebastian on this subject, and I can tell you that he sleeps and sees how to become a boss in the firm. And I can't do that because Sebastian makes mistakes in leadership. Do you realize how that could turn out? But you finally gave him your word to give up the firm. If Sebastian goes bankrupt, it will be on his conscience. And now, I'm not sure about him yet. Let's wait a little longer," David said tiredly. A few more years passed. Cindy was already in 6th grade, and at that time, Miranda found out that her husband had a mistress. It happened by accident. The husband came home from work and, as usual, went to the bathroom and left his cell phone in the hallway. When Sebastian was taking a shower, the cell phone rang. Miranda decided to answer it and picked up the cell phone, which displayed a number signed Sunshine. The woman pressed the call button and heard a female voice. Miranda was furious and shouted to the caller that her husband was a married man, and followed it up by demanding that she never call that number again. When Sebastian came out of the bathtub, Miranda made a scandal about it. The woman screamed, scolding her husband, while he looked at her calmly during this scene. Only after the woman squatted down and covered her face with her palms did he say, "What did you want from me? I waited all these years that you supported me, telling my father to give me the business, but you did not make a step in this direction, and you know very well that you and I are estranged on that basis. Don't you love me at all? Let's not talk about it," the man said irritably and went into the kitchen. Miranda followed her husband. As soon as she sat down at the table, she asked him if he was going to divorce her. Sebastian was a little silent, and then answered that he had not thought about this question yet. And Clara realized with horror that now their marriage was under threat, and it was quite possible that a divorce could take place. The whole next day, the woman thought about how to change the situation. And then she remembered that her spouse said that their scandals most often occur on the basis of the fact that the father did not fulfill his promise. Decided that she could only save the family if she got the consent of her father to transfer to the firm to the spouse. The very next day, she visited her parents, where she approached her father. Miranda said that David was not acting nicely and was not keeping a man's word. The landlord looked at his daughter and quietly asked, "Are you sure you want me to sign over the firm to Sebastian?" "Yes," Miranda answered firmly. "And if I tell you that he has a woman on the side, you will also ask me to give the firm to your lover. I know about the mistress, and I ask you to keep your promise, please," said the daughter sadly, and tears rolled down her eyes. And after a while, Sebastian became the owner of the company. David stopped working and gave the reins to his son-in-law. Miranda rejoiced and hoped that her life would return to its usual course and her husband would stop going to the left. The woman's dreams came true. Sebastian was actually now rushing home after work. The man began to go around with his spouse again and spoke affectionate words to her. However, Miranda's joy was short-lived. The whole thing is that when David transferred his business to his son-in-law, then he began to feel himself not a necessary person. About this, the man told his spouse. Lisa scolded her husband for these thoughts, saying that it was not true. The one seemed to listen to the words of his wife, but still worried. And in connection with this, he had a heart attack. The man lived after that for 3 days and then passed away. After the funeral, Miranda felt a kind of guilt before his father. It was she who insisted that her father rewrote the company to Sebastian, and she shared her thoughts with her husband, who gently embraced her and said, "You shouldn't beat yourself up over your daddy's passing. David, apparently, it was written on the fate to live so much, and you are not to blame. But my mom said that after my dad stopped going to work, he just kind of slumped overnight. I didn't kick my father-in-law out of the firm. He could have kept working there. Let's not talk about sad things. Put those thoughts out of your mind. Anyway, you promised me a royal dinner tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. Go on, get in the kitchen and set the table. Especially now Cindy should be coming in from her walk. The wife responded by kissing her husband gently on the lips and followed him into the kitchen. The woman took out from the oven a fragrant duck that was stuffed with apples. Miranda put the tray on the table, and at that moment, the doorbell rang. The landlady hummed unhappily, thought her daughter had forgotten her house keys again. The woman went to the door and pulled it open and saw her daughter's friends on the doorstep, who were in tears. Miranda felt a chilling coldness clutching her heart and quietly asked what happened. The guys began to tell each other that they went for a walk, and Cindy suggested that everyone jump from the roofs of the garages into the snowdrifts. Everyone took the girl's suggestion enthusiastically, and soon they were standing on the roof. The first to jump was Cindy. She did a flip in the air and fell into a snowdrift. Then came the girl's desperate scream. As it turned out later, Cindy fell on the Iron Dome, which was not visible in the snowdrift. The impact came just above her chest. Miranda, hearing the children's story, screamed desperately at the cry, came running to the husband, who had not yet heard what his daughter's friends were saying. Sebastian grabbed his spouse by the shoulders and began to shake her, but she only screamed. Our girl is in trouble. The head of the family turned to the guys and asked them to tell them in a nutshell what had happened. When Sebastian found out about the accident, he ordered his wife to get dressed immediately, said that they were now on their way to the hospital where they would find out everything about their daughter's condition. A short time later, the couple was already in the emergency room where Cindy was hospitalized. Miranda was sitting on the couch and sobbing convulsively. Sebastian, on the other hand, was pacing nervously in the hospital corridor. He was waiting for the doctor who was currently stitching up the girl's wound. It took a little over an hour before the doctor came down to see Cindy's parents. The medic approached the couple and informed them that the girl was fine, and she was now sleeping. The man also added that it would be possible to visit her tomorrow, and now it is better not to disturb the child. Miranda wanted to object to the doctor, but he looked strictly at the visitor and firmly said, "If you want your girl to be well, I ask you not to contradict me, but to fulfill my request." Sebastian answered the doctor with a nod. Afterwards, he hugged his wife and explained that they should listen to the doctor. The woman buried her face in her husband's chest and cried harder. Then the doctor called a nurse and asked the girl to bring a sedative. All that night, Miranda did not sleep. She thought about how her baby was in the hospital without her. The woman wished that morning would come sooner. She couldn't wait to hug her daughter and say both words. In the morning, the couple was on their way to the hospital. On the way, they bought tangerines, apples, bananas, as well as various sweets. Mother and father wanted to please their daughter with something. And now Sebastian and his wife are in the room of Cindy, who is lying on the bed under the drip. Miranda gently strokes her daughter's cheek and tries to hold back her tears. The girl sees that her mother is very worried about her, as well as her father. Cindy feels her guilt in front of her parents, and so she utters, "You will forgive me. I was the one who initiated those jumps." "Don't apologize, daughter. Just promise me and Daddy that you won't do such reckless acts again," affectionately said the mother. "I give my word, my favorite mommy and daddy. You know, I'll be a midshipman forever. That's what the doctor told me." "How do you understand that?" Miranda asked, perplexed. And then, instead of Cindy, Zhenya had not yet answered a man's voice. It entered the doctor, who heard the girl's last words. The doctor informed that Cindy will have a scar in the area of her chest. And then the medic approached the child and cheerfully said, "Sometimes scars adorn not only the man, but also the fairer sex. But I already told you that." Cindy stayed in the hospital for about 2 weeks. During this time, she was visited not only by her parents, but also by her grandmother and friends with whom she was on the roof of the garages. The girl was eagerly awaiting discharge, And when that day came, she went up to the attending physician and uttered, "I'm going to keep this scar as a symbol of my unconscious act. Do you think that's the right thing to do?" The man in the white coat smiled at the girl's words and then quietly said that it was up to her to decide. And then, added Cindy, that in her life never again appear scars on her body, as well as scars on her soul, and wished the patient all the best. Time was running out. Next thing you know, Cindy was already finishing 7th grade as her grandmother became ill. Miranda realized that Lisa needed care and suggested that her husband hire a nurse. Sebastian refused this to his wife, arguing that she herself can take care of her mother. And with bewilderment said, "But I cannot be a mistress for 2 houses, especially my mother lives in the center. There is another option. Let your mother sell the cottage, which she is no longer very necessary, and give the money to me. I'll use the money for business, and we'll have extra income to spend on Lisa's care. Do you have any idea what you're talking about? It's Mom's summer house, and it's up to her to decide what to do with the property. And even if she agrees to it, it takes time to sell it, just like your side business. And for your information, do you need care now? How's that? You know, I've got 2 options for you, and it's up to you to decide which one you want." Miranda decided to talk to her mom about it. However, Lisa, when she heard what her son-in-law advised, became angry and said that Sebastian was burying her alive. Offering to sell the cottage, the elderly woman told her daughter that a property outside the city would be like a lifeline if times got tough. Lisa added to Miranda that she would always be able to sell the cottage, but now was not the right time to do it. And Clara spent several days thinking how she could get out of the situation. She could not leave her mother alone, and to travel from one end of the city to the other was also not an option. And then the woman came to the aid of her neighbor Lisa, who said that she would take care of Miranda's mother on weekdays for a small fee, and when Miranda would be off, she would live with her mother. And the woman agreed to the neighbor's offer. Life moved on in a measured fashion. Miranda went to her mother's house with her daughter on her last day of work and spent 2 weekends there. Several months passed at this pace. Miranda decided to leave her daughter with her grandmother on Sunday and go to her husband's house. The woman wanted to be alone with her husband, and so she has already arrived home on the way. Having bought champagne and fruit, Miranda purposely did not notify her lover, as she wanted to make him an unexpected surprise. The woman quietly opened the front door and froze in the hallway as she heard the laughter of a stranger. Miranda understood the situation immediately and immediately went into the hall, where she saw it in the semi-nude form of her husband, who held in his arms Blonde. The landlady screamed Sebastian, not expecting the arrival of his wife. With amazement looked at her and asked what she was doing here on this day. After all, she should be at her mother's. Miranda was furious at her husband's question and spoke hysterically. "Have you forgotten that this is my apartment? How could you? Bringing all sorts of fallen women into our abode. So I understand that you have no money to take care of my mother. And to provide for your mistresses, you always have the money in your pocket." With those words, Miranda rushed to the chair where the stranger's belongings lay. The woman grabbed the clothes, threw them in the blonde's direction, and loudly commanded her to get dressed and get out of here immediately. "And I don't want to see your foot here ever again. If you listen, you'll be sorry. You're not in charge here, darling," calmly said immediately husband, and immediately added, "This is also my apartment. And do not offend my swallow, as I'm going to live with her, not with you. And it's a matter already settled." And with these words, the man got up and began to dress casually. Miranda looked at her husband and could not believe that the man she loved had betrayed her once again. She watched as the lover helped the stranger to dress. After that, the couple left the apartment. The mistress, after the departure of her husband, and his mistress sat in a daze for some time. She could not even understand what she should do at the moment. And then the woman, as if came out of a stupor, desperately angry with tears. She realized that from that moment on, she no longer had a spouse. A few days later, Miranda received a call from her husband and said that he was filing for divorce with the division of property. The woman listened to the chosen one, asked him to come to his senses and not to leave the family, at least for the sake of the child. Sebastian was adamant and said that his decision will not change. Miranda did not tell her mother all this news, as well as her daughter. However, Cindy, who had not seen her father for several days, who did not come to spend the night, asked where Daddy had gone, and I realized that there was no point in hiding it from my daughter. So I told Cindy that she and her husband were getting a divorce. The girl looked at her mother in amazement and asked what was the reason. A banal reason. Your father has fallen in love with another woman and wants to start a family with her. You do not resent your father for this. Understand that in life it happens when feelings between people are frozen. So you don't love your father anymore? Quietly asked the daughter. I can't answer you anything, as there is an emptiness in my soul. I only ask you not to say anything to your grandmother. She doesn't need to worry. Soon the court took place, at which Miranda learned that the 2-room apartment is divided into 3 parts, and if she wants to keep the property, she must pay some share to her spouse. The woman immediately said that she did not have that amount. Sebastian then indicated that he was willing to give the money. Miranda so that the apartment would remain in his possession. The woman tried to defend her rights in court, saying that the property was given to them by her father. However, she was immediately informed that the apartment was given to both of them. Miranda tried to challenge the court's ruling that the cars and business had previously belonged to her dad as well. But even here she failed, as all the papers of the deceased David executed a deed of gift in the name of Sebastian. All these court cases were a heavy burden on Miranda's shoulders. She never thought that the man she loved would do to her in such a way. And the most unpleasant thing was that there was even an inventory of household appliances, as well as furniture and kitchen utensils. Miranda was disgusted with sharing all this. She said to her now ex-husband, I didn't realize you were such a petty person. You can keep everything in the apartment. We will not claim it, but you have a daughter growing up. How are you going to look her in the eye? And I'm not going to hurt Cindy. When she grows up, I'm going to help out financially. Right now, I'm going to pay child support. After the trial, Miranda and her daughter packed up their personal belongings. Cindy put in a bag, jeans, t-shirts, underwear. And then her gaze came across a photo on which she was pictured with her parents. The girl promptly got up from her chair and ran to the desk. She grabbed the framed photo and threw it to the floor with all her might. At the same moment, the sound of breaking glass was heard. Miranda came running to the noise. The woman saw that there were shards of framed glass on the floor. She immediately assessed the situation and approached her daughter with the words, I understand that you are angry, but smashing things is not the way out of the situation. You can't understand how much I hate my father at the moment. He'd even share a dining room set with us. I'm in a trance over his actions. A friend's parents are recently divorced, too. Her dad just took his stuff, and that's it. And my dad started sharing everything. It's disgusting. I'm not making a big deal out of it. Just realize that you and I are superior in this situation because we're not taking anything but our personal belongings. And at that moment, Sebastian entered the room, wanting to make sure his ex-wife had already packed up her Corinne's belongings as soon as she saw her father. Shouted in tears to him that he was the most real traitor, and she would definitely take revenge on him for that. The man calmly listened to the angry words of his daughter and said in response, Now you are speaking on emotion. It is possible that you are being motherized against me, but one day you will grow up, and this situation will reconsider already with your own view. This is purely my personal opinion, and Mom has nothing to do with it. On the contrary, she's trying to make me stop hating you. But she can't do it. I want you to know that you are the most hated person in the world. A few days later, Miranda and her daughter moved in with Lisa, the elderly woman. As soon as she saw her daughter with many bags, she immediately guessed what had happened. She hugged her granddaughter and then Miranda and said softly, That's what it was all about. So girls, let's not write about it, but instead have a celebration. The three of us will endure everything and live with all our enemies, in spite of them, in comfort, enjoying life. After Miranda and her daughter changed their place of residence, the woman transferred Cindy to another school closer to home. She herself also went to work at another bank. Miranda tried not to think about her ex-spouse. She wanted to cut that man out of her life completely. The most important thing for her now was only one thing: to keep her mother alive as long as possible and to make her daughter happy in the future. A year had passed since the divorce. Miranda's mother passed away suddenly. The woman organized the funeral with her own efforts. She very much, by the way, came to the money that she received from her ex-husband for a share in a 2-room apartment. Miranda buried her mother next to her father, and after a while installed black marble monuments on the graves. Several years passed. During this time, Cindy graduated from high school and entered college. The girl decided not to change family traditions and become like her mother and grandmother, an accountant. During these years, Miranda's ex-husband never once visited his daughter, although he faithfully paid alimony. Cindy was even grateful to her father that he did not seek meetings with her. The girl still hated her father for his betrayal. Miranda all these years lived only for the sake of her daughter. For her often tried to court representatives of the stronger sex. But all their attempts, the woman stopped at the root, which surprised her familiar friends. Cindy also wondered why her mother does not try to arrange a personal life. And one day there was a conversation between them. The girl turned to her mother. "You are so beautiful. You have such a slender figure that can envy the model. And you all alone. Yes, alone. Why don't you want to get together with some man? Isn't it bad for you that mom lives only for you?" Mother asked with a smile. "It's good, but it's not right. You are not old at all, and you can start a family with a decent man. And I'll love a guy someday too. Which means kicking me out of my parents' nest, and you'll have to live on your own. You know, daughter, I don't want to commit to anyone else. I got burned once. I still have a wound on my soul that won't scar. And about falling out of the nest soon, you won't forget to visit your mommy." "Of course not. Tell me, Mommy, do you still love Daddy?" That's a hard question, and I can't answer. To be honest, I remember Sebastian, but only those moments when we were happy with him. But the last years I try to erase from my memory. I just want to think about that man. That's good. Probably the folk saying is true that you will love, love, and Goat edifyingly said, "And the daughter." "You, my folk philosopher," laughing, said the mother and immediately added, "Go, let's wash up, and we'll have dinner. By the way, I have a proposal to go this summer to the dacha and see what's left of it. We haven't been there for 2 years. What do you think?" Sounds like fun, but we have to live to see the summer. Some time passed, summer came, and Miranda took a vacation, and soon mother and daughter were already riding on the train out of town, and Miranda was talking to Cindy, and she herself watched how opposite. A young man cast admiring glances at her daughter. The woman involuntarily looked at Cindy and mentally thought what a beautiful daughter she had. Soon Cindy and her mother were standing outside the cottage. Miranda looked sorrowfully, and her mood had fallen. Cindy noticed this and asked why her mother had fallen asleep. The woman pointed her hand in the direction of the cottage and answered that it was no longer a cottage, but a den for homeless vagrants. Miranda approached the fence and only wanted to open the wicket as it creaked out onto the ground. The woman turned to her daughter and sighed brokenly. Cindy jumped up to her mother, hugged her and said, "Maybe we'll rent this house, but not for a fee, but for people to repair this shanty. Who would need this junk to live in it? Your grandfather used to fix this place up when he was alive. How long has he been alive? He's gone. I think we should sell this so-called house and put the money in an account. We'll need the money in the future. Maybe you're right. I told you to find a decent man and start a family, and you're always against it. And now if I had a husband with me, we'd renovate this place. This place needs a man's hands to fix it up. In fact, It seems to me that this hovel should be torn down and a new hut built. Again you start sermons about matchmaking, said in response mother jokingly threatened with her fist, and immediately followed by adding we will sell, at least for a place of money to learn. Miranda managed to sell the dacho only by the end of the summer. The woman received little money, as she had absolutely no skill, profitable to paint the merits of the plot. But Miranda was happy, and this money, which she immediately put on a bank card. Time moved on imperceptibly. And now Cindy was graduating from college. The girl dreamed of getting a job as soon as possible. Moreover, her mother agreed with the management of the bank, where she herself worked, so that Cindy was taken to the credit institution. Cindy worked under her mother's supervision. Before graduating from college, there were only a few days left, and the girl was returning home after studying. She was passing near the cafe when she smelled the aroma of fresh, overbrewed coffee. Cindy could not resist the temptation and looked into the cafe. The girl knew very well that this establishment was not a cheap one, but the aroma was too tempting. Cindy sat down at a table, and a waiter came to her at once. A young guy handed her a menu, but the girl gestured that she only wanted a cup of coffee. The waiter nodded with a displeased look and moved away from the table. The girl had to wait just a couple of minutes as a young man in a uniform already placed in front of her a clay miniature cup with a flavorful drink. Cindy thanked the waiter, and when he stepped away, she looked around. There were few people in the cafe, and they were mostly young people sitting in pairs. The girl at this moment thought how romantic it would be to sit here with a young man and talk peacefully to the sound of a melody. And only Cindy took the cup of coffee with 2 fingers by the handle, as behind herself she heard a man's voice, which was clearly addressing her. The girl looked back unhappily. She did not want at the moment to be interrupted from savoring the aromatic drink. And when Cindy turned around, she saw a status tall guy in front of her, who, smiling amiably, said, "Can I break your loneliness? Especially since I always take this table. It is not written here that this is your place." Without noticing it, the girl replied in a hostile tone, "I will consider that you just told me to sit next to you." Without stopping smiling, spoke the stranger, and at the same moment sat down. Opposite the girl to him instantly came the waiter and took the order. Meanwhile, the young man, not paying attention to the hostility of the girl, extended his hand to her and politely said, "My name is Kevin." "And what do they call you?" "And you are an impudent type. First of all, sat down at the table without waiting for my consent. Second of all, you want to meet me, when I don't want to do that. It's too late to back out. Since you know my name, I'll have to tell you mine too. I promise I won't tell anyone else the name of my charming companion. And you are also a cheeky type." With a laugh said the girl, and immediately continued, "All right, you've persuaded though, or rather, imposed your communication. My name is Cindy." After that, the young people casually chatted. For some time, Kevin tried to maintain an easy conversation. The girl was well aware that the guy knows how to make the interlocutor feel at ease. This fact impressed Cindy, but at the same time a little deterred her. She feared that in this way the guy would become an obsessive beau. But this did not happen. After an hour spent talking in the cafe, the young man offered to exchange phone numbers and apologized that he could not walk the girl home. He explained that at the moment he had urgent business to attend to. Cindy dictated her phone number, and then the young man gallantly said goodbye and left the cafe. The girl only had time to notice that the guy got into a beautiful foreign car, and the car soon moved. After the acquaintance, several days passed. Cindy kept waiting for a call from Bone. The girl, involuntarily for herself, often thought about the new acquaintance, and it began to annoy her. She tried to push away the thoughts of the guy, but she failed. When a week passed after a fleeting meeting, Cindy did not hope that the young man would make himself known. But it happened when the girl sat at home and read a lecture. It was already 12 o'clock when the bell rang. Cindy looked at the cell phone with surprise and thought that it was probably a wrong number. She dropped the call, but the ringing repeated. The girl picked up the phone with irritation and wanted to say rude things, as heard the voice of Kevin, who greetingly said, "Do not hurry." Still prickly, especially found time to call, that he wanted to hear your voice and meet tomorrow in the same cafe, but only a little later. "I want to see you there at 18 o'clock. Cindy only wanted to answer the bard. How did the receiver beeped? The girl was angry that she was not allowed to finish and decided to call herself to tell Kevin that this is not how real men behave. She dialed the guy, but the man dropped the call. The girl made several more attempts, but the result was the same. Cindy didn't make any more calls. She lay on the bed and thought about the young man, as a few minutes later came a text message from Bone, which said, "I know, pissed off, but this way you will definitely come to the cafe." Cindy, after reading the message, laughed merrily and thought, how enterprising is this guy? And only after that the girl turned on her side and soon fell asleep. In the morning, she was awakened by her mom, who was interested. Asked who had called Cindy that night. The girl was embarrassed by her mother's question and lied, saying it was a wrong number. At the appointed hour, Cindy arrived at the cafe, where she saw Kevin at the table. He was sitting and looking at a newspaper. The girl came up and said sternly that she wanted such late calls to be no more. The young man looked at the girl's stern face and, trying to hold back laughter, promised that such a thing would not happen again. And then the guy offered Cindy to sit down and order, but she only asked for a cup of coffee. The young people talked for a long time. Kevin asked the interlocutor to tell about herself. The girl did not resist and briefly told about herself, and then asked the man to do the same. Kevin said that he was graduating from a foreign language university and was 25 years old. After this meeting, Kevin began to call Cindy frequently. They met rarely, as the young man kept saying that he had urgent matters to attend to. Cindy was often annoyed by this fact, and when a month passed from their acquaintance, she directly asked the guy what kind of business he had that required such a hurry. The guy smiled in response and replied that the time would come, and she would find out. Cindy decided that she would not pressure the young man and would wait for the moment when he himself wanted to tell everything. The girl's mother noticed that her daughter has been behaving in a very mysterious way lately. When Cindy is called, she tries to howl in the stairwell or tightly closes the door to her room. And this never used to happen before, and it also seemed strange to Miranda that her daughter, if she goes out in the evenings, she does not call her friends beforehand. So the woman decided to call Cindy for a frank conversation. She said, "Is it just me, or is it? Are you really in love? Why would you think that? When I fell in love, I acted that way. I became secretive. How are you now?" The woman said with a smile, "I've got a young man, but it's just a simple conversation that doesn't involve anything. I can't tell you more than that." After this conversation, a week passed and Cindy met Kevin. They were driving around town and chatting merrily as always. Just then a young man pulled into a small prologue and slowed down. The girl looked at Kostya with surprise, and he confessed his feelings to her in full earnest. Cindy was amazed at the words of the guy and asked softly, "What is this?" "A marriage proposal. It's not quite right, but it's almost right. You don't have to tell me. You probably have urgent matters again that prevent you from speaking in no riddles. Don't be angry. Just give me some time, and I'll explain everything to you." A week passed after that conversation. The girl was already planning to get a job at her mother's place, and before going out to work at the bank, she decided to update her closet. Cindy told her mom about her idea, and she gladly supported it. Miranda gave her daughter the money and wished her a good shopping trip. Cindy wanted to buy herself a white strict blouse and a pencil skirt. The girl went to the city center to an expensive boutique. She looked at the blouses for a long time and stopped on two, which were completely different in style. Cindy was already approaching, for example, in the booth, as she noticed a familiar figure. It was Kevin, and next to him stood a spectacular brunette who was twirling near the mirror and enthusiastically told the man a fancy suit. "Thank you, honey. This will be my present from you for our 3 years of marriage." Cindy at that moment could not believe her ears. That the brunette had said that. The girl moved closer to the couple, and at the same moment she saw that Bone had a wedding ring on her right ring finger. Cindy felt a bad though, and by an effort of will she forced herself to restrain a cry of disappointment. And at the same second the young man turned around, who realized everything from the girl's face. Cindy with one lip said to the guy only one word, "I hate." And after that she gave the blouses to the saleswoman, who did not even have time to try them on. Cindy ran outside and got into a cab, giving her address. She flew home and locked herself in her room. Miranda was puzzled as to what had befallen her daughter. She heard Cindy crying and asked her to open the door to talk to her. Meanwhile, Cindy's cell phone rang incessantly, but she did not answer it. Only after some time the girl came out of her room and headed for the bathroom. But Miranda stopped her and hugged her gently, and then offered to go to the kitchen to drink tea. The landlady sat her daughter on a chair and softly said, "And now, my sunshine, tell Mommy what happened." Cindy sobs explained to her mom that she has been dating for a little over 2 months now with a young man, and he had just recently confessed his love to her, and in doing so made it clear that he was going to propose to her. And today Cindy found out that he has a wife to whom the man has been married for 3 years. And then the girl talked about meeting the guy at a boutique. When the daughter finished talking, Miranda stroked her head and asked her to calm down, and then asked if this young man was the one who was calling everything at this particular time. Cindy nodded in response. Then Miranda said that it was necessary to give the man a chance to speak. The girl looked at her mother in bewilderment and said, "Why should I do that? He has deceived me. Do you want me to hear another fairy tale from this liar? Why didn't you just give him the word? And then you're gonna take it out on me. Don't you want to know what a man who's obviously in your heart has to say? Don't tell me I'm wrong about the last part." Miranda said quietly. "Okay, Mom, I'll talk to him." Soon the girl answered the phone. Sebastian asked to meet her for at least half an hour. Cindy told the place where she would wait for him and the time. Soon the young people saw each other. The man this time had a ring on his finger. The girl, seeing it on the guy's hand, involuntarily twitched her shoulders. This movement did not escape the young man, and he spoke. "Yes, I am married, and I have concealed this fact from myself. But the whole point is that I'm going to get a divorce. Our marriage is a mistake. My wife, Christina, a spoiled, capricious girl, and after living with her for 1.5 years, I realized I made a mistake marrying her. But the thing is, her father has a lot of connections, and he's a big man in this town. And now I want to go abroad for 1 year. I already told Christina that I have a sweetheart, and it's you. When she found out, she told me I'd never get an internship. And I told you what that means to me. What kind of fairy tale are you trying to tell me? In this case, I haven't lied to you a single word. If you want me to turn down the internship, I'll take the papers and file for divorce right now. You're very precious to me, and I don't want to lose you. When I saw you in the cafe, I immediately realized that this is the kind of woman I need in my life, who behaves independently, does not build a figure. I don't know how else to prove to you that I love you. It's up to you. What do I have to do? And I can't believe it all at once. You should have told me all this at once, and not after I saw you in the boutique, trying to hold back tears," said the girl. "Are you right? I should have said it beforehand. I was cowardly, and I'm not going to make excuses for it now. And now I've suggested to you that I should call my wife in front of you and tell her that we're splitting up. I don't want any internship. You don't have to call anybody. Just give me time to think about it. Now I'm tired, and I'm going home. Don't walk me home, and don't call me. I'll call you later when I've fought it over." After that, the girl turned and hurried home. On the way, she pondered the young man's words. She really wanted to believe that everything Sebastian had told her would actually be true. Coming home, Cindy held nothing back. Told about everything to her mother, Miranda, after her daughter's narration reflected. The woman saw that her girl was suffering as she was in love with this young man. And Miranda asked only 2 questions to her daughter. Do you yourself trust what you have heard? What does your heart tell you, mother? I love him, and I've seen him speak his heart with sincerity. But for some reason, my mind resists it. I don't know what to do. What would you do in my situation? I trust a woman's intuition, and I trust my heart. But you take my advice, don't take it into account. I don't want you to think it's my fault. But if you want, I can meet Sebastian and talk to him. But I don't think I can tell from the first meeting what kind of man he really is. Don't, Mommy. You've done a good job of helping me now. The daughter said gratefully and hugged her mother tenderly. Cindy thought about it for a few days. During this time, Sebastian did not call her because he promised not to disturb her until she made a decision. In the meantime, the girl was as if between 2 fires. She did not know what to do in this situation. After all, on the one hand, she wanted to be with this man always, as she loved the man with all her heart. And on the other hand, Cindy was afraid that the guy would just take advantage of her naivety and deceive her. And yet the girl made a decision. Her feelings for Sebastian won, and she risked to trust this man. Now Cindy only had to decide what to do. Choose the option that the guy went to an internship or right now announce to his wife that he takes a divorce, and at the same time forget about abroad. The girl knew how important this internship was for Sebastian and realized that if they suggest to her lover to tell his wife about the divorce, then later she herself will regret that she acted in such a way. And soon Cindy called the chosen one and scheduled a meeting. As soon as the young people met, the girl told the guy about her decision and immediately added that if he started a double game, it will all return to him 100-fold in the future. Sebastian, hearing that Cindy was not going to break off the relationship with him with fervor, said, "What other game? I love you and I want to be together. Since you haven't called, I've been exhausted, and I had a little surprise for you." With these words, the guy took out of his jacket pocket a red box. He handed it to the girl and quietly said, "Very soon you and I will legalize our relationship, and now I gave you this ring as a sign that you are already a shrine." Time slowly went on. The young people met occasionally, but called each other almost every day. Sebastian always asked how the girl was doing. And at the same time, he did not forget to tell Cindy how much he loved her and missed her. Miranda saw that her daughter had recovered her spirits and was happy for her, but the woman's heart was heavy. She herself did not know what was troubling her. And when Cindy came back from another date pensive, she turned to her daughter and asked her why she was sad. The daughter looked at her mother and spoke in a whisper. "Sebastian is leaving in a few days. We won't see him for 6 months. He won't call much. But you know that yourself, my daughter. But you knew you were going to be separated, and you should be ready for it. I know, Mom, but it's still very hard for me to be away from him for so long. I have a small favor to ask of you. Can I spend the day after tomorrow with Sebastian? Don't worry, he didn't ask for it. It's my decision." Miranda looked sadly at her daughter after her words. She was silent for a while, thinking about how to answer her daughter's request, and then after a short pause she said, "You're not 18 years old anymore, and you're making your own decision. And if you want to be with this person all day, then you are going to take this step consciously, and you will not be stopped by my refusal, although I'm not going to talk you out of anything. All I can say is, don't make a mistake in your decision, so you won't regret it later." Sebastian soon left. Cindy was in a depressed mood after the departure of her lover. Miranda saw that her daughter was trying to appear cheerful, but the woman realized that it was only for show. Miranda tried her best to distract Cindy from her sad thoughts, and when a month had passed since Sebastian's departure and there was still no news from him, the woman suggested that her daughter go shopping. The girl looked at her mother disapprovingly and said, "I don't have time to dress up now. I understand you, but are you really throwing away your own mother? Who told you I don't want to look elegant?" Cindy looked at her mother in surprise. She had already forgotten the last time her mother had bought herself. Miranda realized that she had achieved her goal as she had stumped her daughter with a suggestion, which was exactly what she was seeking at the moment. After all, she didn't really need her again. And Cindy, when she had recovered from her initial emotions, turned to her mother. "I missed something. Did you get a man?" "No, but maybe I'm going to get some old bachelor," the woman said with a laugh. Another month flew by and Cindy, sitting at home with her mother, was talking about accounting after work. Just at that moment, her cell phone rang. The girl jumped up as Miranda had already and ran to grab the phone. And soon Miranda heard her daughter happily talking on the cell phone. The landlady immediately guessed that Sebastian had called. And in fact, a few minutes later, a happy Cindy came in and said that her lover had called. Several months passed. During this time, Sebastian called and sent text messages several times. And soon the young man said that he would come home for a week to celebrate the new year. Cindy was thrilled with the news. Miranda saw how her daughter was happy about the event, but it seemed to her that the girl was celebrating prematurely. And so a few days before the arrival of the young man, Cindy said, "And I am glad that your chosen one is coming soon. But don't get too excited, because he will probably spend New Year's Eve not with you, but with his wife. You know how to ruin the mood, Mom. When Sebastian arrives, we'll find out." "On the C and the eyebrows," replied the daughter. The long-awaited day came. Sebastian arrived. The young man, already a couple of hours after his arrival, called Cindy. Cindy happily promised that she would try to get off work early. Miranda looked at her daughter and realized how much Cindy was looking forward to seeing her boyfriend. The woman approached her daughter and said that she was free for the day. The girl gratefully hugged her mother and quickly left the bank. Miranda let her daughter go and wished her happiness mentally. Soon the woman came home. Then Cindy called and said that she would not come to spend the night. This news did not surprise the landlady, as she assumed that this would happen. After all, her daughter had been so much time apart from her favorite person. The next day was Saturday. Miranda woke up and, as usual, looked into Cindy's room, who was not there. The woman looked at the empty bed in bewilderment and immediately slapped herself on the forehead. Miranda had forgotten that this night the daughter was in the company of Sebastian. The landlady then headed to the kitchen to make herself breakfast, and then her cell phone rang. The woman picked up the phone and heard the happy voice of her daughter, Mamulia. "Hi, we'll be there soon, wait for us. But I didn't cook anything." "You couldn't have warned me from the evening," the mother said confusedly. "You don't have to cook anything. We'll bring everything with us." And within a couple hours, Miranda was already meeting her daughter with her young man, who was holding a bouquet of flowers. Sebastian smiled and handed the flowers to the woman. Miranda thanked the man and invited him into the hall, where a table was already set up with a spread of sausage and cheese and several vases of homemade straws. In a few minutes, everyone was already seated at the table. Cindy was merrily counting the many interesting things Sebastian had told her about being abroad. Miranda listened to her daughter and looked furtively at her guest. The woman noted that the young man was handsome and behaved correctly. The landlady liked this fact. Meanwhile, Cindy kept talking and talking, and then she was politely interrupted by Sebastian. "Darling, have you forgotten that we brought sushi with us? Maybe we should put them on the table." The girl splashed her hands after the guy's words and went to the hallway, where the grocery bag had been left. Meanwhile, Sebastian turned to the landlady. He said, "You are interested in a lot of things, and I understand that. You can ask me anything you want. I have nothing to hide. Young man, all I care about is the fate of my daughter. Tell me you'll never give her up." "No, she's dear to me. And about New Year's Eve, I'm going to celebrate it with you, if you don't mind." "I will be grateful to you for this," with a smile replied the woman, who did not expect these words from her daughter's lover. Yes, it went by very quickly, and Sebastian went abroad again. But now that Miranda got to know the guy, she felt at ease. She believed that the young man treated her daughter sincerely. 2 weeks had passed. After Sebastian left, Cindy was returning home with her mother. They were walking, discussing working moments, as the girl's phone rang. Cindy happily pulled out her cell phone as she thought it was her chosen one calling. But she was mistaken. The girl saw an unknown number. She answered and heard an unfamiliar female voice that said, "I can hear Cindy. Yes, you are speaking to me. We need to meet. It's about Sebastian." The stranger spoke quickly and then dictated where to come and what time. Cindy wanted to ask a couple of questions, but the connection on the other end was already disconnected. The girl shrugged her shoulders in bewilderment. Her mother, seeing her daughter's amazement, asked who had called. Cindy said that it was a wrong number. After a while, the girl told Miranda that she had to go out on business. Cindy was puzzled by this call from a stranger, but she did not want to bother her mother for nothing. So she hid from her that she was going to a meeting. The girl hailed a cab and gave the driver the address to go to. The chauffeur looked at the girl with surprise and asked her if she was sure she had to take her there. Cindy answered in the affirmative, and in half an hour the girl was there. She let go of the car and looked around. It was an abandoned construction site. Cindy was surprised that the meeting was scheduled in such a place. Just then the girl saw a foreign car pull up and a brunette woman get out of it. Cindy immediately recognized the young woman. It was Sebastian's wife. Christina leisurely approached the girl and looked at her with disdain. Cindy endured the gaze and coldly inquired as to why this meeting was necessary. Christina grinned, and then she muttered stiffly that she wanted Cindy out of her husband's life forever, and then added, "You better not confront me. My father is a lieutenant colonel, and he has the power to do a lot of bad things to those who obey me. Listen, Christina, don't scare me. Sebastian, you're not loved and you know it. Why would you cut off pieces of love when you know your husband's heart belongs to someone else? If I were you, I'd just give him a divorce as soon as he gets back from his internship, although your desire for a divorce doesn't really matter anymore. That's because Sebastian has already decided he's not going to live with you. How did you find me, by the way? Finding you wasn't a problem. I knew my husband had a woman on the side. He has them a lot. It's just his personality. So don't be fooled into thinking you're his one and only. He'll play with you and leave you, like he's done with everyone before. If your husband's such a womanizer, then why did you call me here? You said yourself that Sebastian will play with you and dump you, but you don't have to answer that. I'll speak for you. You just realized that Sebastian really loves me and wants to be with me. But you didn't answer my question about how you found me on your husband's phone. I found your number. I take it there's no way to work things out with you. No, then you're gonna regret it, Christina said angrily. And what will you do to me? Cindy said mockingly. How about this? And with these words, the brunette opened her purse, from where she took out a small vial and with a quick movement, spilled the contents of the bottle on the face of her interlocutor. Cindy screamed and covered her face with her hands. Meanwhile, Christina Evil smirked and spoke. My husband likes beautiful girls, and your face is not as beautiful as it used to be. And don't you dare go to the police. I already told you who my father is. If you don't take my advice, you'll end up in the dock yourself. Now goodbye, girl. Cindy didn't see Christina leave. The girl fell to the ground and screamed loudly in unbearable pain. And then she lost consciousness. Cindy woke up only a few days later in the intensive care unit. The girl wanted to raise her head, but she was pierced by a terrible pain and moaned. Cindy tried to open her eyes, but she failed. At the same moment, a nurse came up to her and mouthed, "Awake. That's wonderful. I'll get the doctor now, and you'll talk to him." Soon the doctor came over, who asked the girl a few questions and then informed her that she would be moved to a room. Before leaving, the man added that Cindy was waiting to talk to the investigator. The girl responded by asking how she had ended up in the hospital. The doctor looked thoughtfully at the patient and said, "You were brought here by a homeless man who frequents the place. He found you unconscious and carried you in his arms to our hospital. By the way, he's worried about your health and came by to see how you're doing. I must give him credit for not abandoning a man in distress. You could have died of hypothermia. It's hot out, and there are other factors that could have killed you. But it's all behind me now, and I'm glad of it. After a while, the girl was moved to the ward, and Cindy's mother came to see her. The woman rushed to her daughter and hugged her. Miranda stroked the girl's arms and cried silently. Cindy heard Vanya's sobs to the mother and asked her to calm down. Miranda tried to hold back her emotions, but she failed. Just then, the door to the room fell open. A man entered. He approached the patient's bed and said softly that he was an investigator and needed to ask some questions. Miranda glared at the stranger and said, "Can't you see the girl's condition? She doesn't need your questions right now. I understand perfectly well, but now you listen to me. There's a lot of time wasted, with Cindy unconscious and the perpetrator still at large. The sooner I find out what happened that day, the more likely we are to catch this scoundrel and put him behind bars. It's in your best interest," said the Miranda man, and then turned to Cindy. "Tell us what happened that day. Please be focused in detail when you recall. Every little detail is important to us. I don't remember anything. An unknown person threw something in my face, and then darkness," Cindy said weakly. "And that's all you remember? What were you doing in that neighborhood, and what did this person look like?" "I was just walking around. I've told you everything I know. That's all I have to tell you. Can I ask you to leave me alone? I'm very tired." The man looked intently at the victim's mother and asked her to go out into the corridor with him. Here, the investigator told Miranda to try to persuade her daughter to cooperate with the investigation and to try to find out from the girl what had happened that day. The woman nodded silently and headed for the room. Miranda walked over to her daughter and sat down next to her. She stroked her daughter's hands and quietly told Cindy to try to think only of the good times right now. The girl replied muffledly that all she had to do was wait for the bandage to be removed, to look at her face, and then she could enjoy life. The visitor interrupted her daughter and spoke out. "Let's not talk about it now. Better tell me what you were doing at the abandoned construction site and who threw acid in your face. Please don't lie to me, because I know you went there on purpose and you saw the face of the perpetrator who did it. Mom, from now on, this is a closed matter and please don't bring it up again." Cindy was in the hospital for over a month. During this time, the girl did not communicate with her roommate and tried to keep to herself. And when she saw her reflection in the mirror, she withdrew into herself. The doctor noticed that the patient was in a depressed state and before discharge told the girl and her mother to remove the scars as possible, but it will require several expensive operations. Now the change of appearance is only in your hands, and we on our part did everything we could. After being discharged from the hospital, Cindy quit her job, and she also changed her SIM card number. Miranda could not understand why her daughter had done this and asked her directly about it. The girl looked at her mother and without emotion said with such a face only to scare children, not to go to work, "I changed my SIM card because I don't want to communicate with Sebastian anymore. Are you afraid that Sebastian won't want to deal with you because you have scars on your face? If a man loves, he won't care about that. Because they don't love you for your looks. I don't want anything to do with him, and that's the end of it. And in general, I do not want to live without emotions," said the daughter. "What are you talking about? Have you thought about me?" the woman said excitedly. Miranda was worried about her daughter's state of mind after this conversation. She was afraid that Cindy might do something irreparable. Then one day the woman came home and saw a pile of pills on the table in the kitchen. Miranda cried out and ran to her daughter's room, where she saw the girl lying on the bed. The woman ran up to Cindy, slowed her down. The one opened her eyes and said that everything was fine, and she had not taken medication, but wanted to do so. Miranda realized after this incident that something had to be done, and then she decided that it was necessary to put her daughter in the clinic and do plastic surgery. For this purpose, the woman withdrew her savings and went to a famous specialist. The doctor examined the girl and said that the appearance can be returned, but only not the same as it was before. When Cindy heard this, she said, "I don't need my past appearance. Soon, Cindy was admitted to a clinic where the first surgery was performed. Then rehabilitation care was required, for which finances were also needed. Miranda had nothing left to do, how to take out a loan. But the money was just enough to pay for the care. And more surgeries were needed. So Miranda turned to her daughter. "You and I have one way out. Sell the apartment and move to another city, where we will buy a one-room apartment. And the rest of the money will be used for the operation and the loan repayment." "Mom, but you and I are going to live in poverty. Is that the most important thing? You're more important to me now." The decision was unanimous, the girl's mother said firmly, and then hugged her daughter tenderly. Cindy was glad that they would soon leave this town, for she knew that Sebastian would soon arrive. And that was the only reason she had talked her mother into not delaying the sale of the apartment. Miranda understood why her daughter asked her to sell the property as soon as possible, and as a result, a deal was soon made. The apartment was sold for next to nothing, and Cindy and her mother moved to a provincial town. After that, Miranda got a job again and put her daughter in the clinic for another operation. And I realized that they were going to be struggling financially right now, so I took a part-time job. She started doing bookkeeping at one of the small firms. A couple years went by. During that time, Cindy had 2 more surgeries. And now the girl was with a completely different face from the same old Cindy she had been before. Miranda was happy for her daughter that now her girl could start her life with a new leaf. And Cindy at one time was grateful to her mother for going to any lengths just to give her back the meaning of life. And one day a conversation took place between mother and daughter, the initiator of which was the girl. "Mammy, tell me, you do not regret anything that, for example, left the megalopolis in this backwoods just to give me back my face?" "That's silly. That's my girl. If I had to make another decision, I'd do the same thing. When you're a mom, you'll understand. Maybe I will someday." "Which I doubt," the girl said sadly. "Okay, openness for openness. When you got acid thrown at you, it was because of Sebastian." "Yes. Why didn't you tell the investigator?" The mother asked quietly. "We wouldn't have been able to prove anything. Christina's father works in law enforcement, and I was also afraid that Sebastian would get hurt. That's what I thought. And you still love him." Soon Cindy got a job, too, and life slowly moved on. Miranda hoped that all their sorrows were behind them now. How did her heart begin to ache? Doctors immediately said that it was necessary to quit one job, as it was an additional load on the main organ of life. The woman had no choice but to leave her position as an accountant in the firm. Cindy was glad that her mother had quit her second job. The girl now wanted her mother to not need anything, but she realized that with their salaries, they wouldn't get far. Cindy knew they were not poor, but she wanted her mother to be able to go to the sea and relax. So after work, she told Miranda, "I want to go to my father's house. I've been in touch with a classmate. She told me he started a second company. I'm gonna go and shake his wallet." Back in the day, my dad promised he'd help me, but not until I turned 18. He just disappeared from my life. I don't need to do this. Let that man live his life. And I still have a grudge against him in my soul, and I want to spill it. Years later, the girl said sadly, "That's bad that you cannot let go of resentment against your father." The mother replied sadly. A week later, Cindy told her mother that she was leaving for another city. Miranda realized that her daughter was going to the place where they had lived before. The woman tried to stop Cindy, but she was adamant. The girl explained that she would try to get a job as an accountant and earn more money so that next year they could go to the sea together. And already Cindy is in another city. She rented a room and went to look for a job. She was lucky. On her first day, she read an advertisement for an accountant in a firm that had recently opened. Cindy arrived at the appointed address and was met by the deputy director. The young man questioned the girl about her work experience and then called the boss and told him that a young woman had come to get a job as an accountant. Soon, Cindy got a job in a travel agency. The girl quickly got acquainted with the staff, which was not numerous. The staff consisted of only 7 people. Cindy learned that the firm had been in existence for a relatively short time. In a week's time, it would be a year since it had opened. The girl inquired of one of the female employees, "Why is there no director in place?" And she laughed. Answered that the boss is here very rarely. A few days passed, and the deputy director announced that the day after tomorrow, there is a corporate party on the occasion of the anniversary of the opening of the company. The entire staff amicably piled up the shot. After all, this meant that it was possible to have fun. Meanwhile, the deputy director went on to say that it was necessary to appear in dress uniform, and finally added that the supervisor would be attending the party. Cindy was curious to see for the first time her immediate director, who had hired her without even looking at her once. And so this day of the corporate party came. At the end of the working day, the office staff began to set the table. The appetizer was ordered in one of the cafes, and now when the courier brought the order, then all merrily displayed appetizers on the table. There was a relaxed atmosphere in the room while preparing everything for the party. One of the employees told a funny anecdote, and everyone present laughed. And soon the deputy director invited everyone to take a seat at the table. He called the boss and informed him that the boss would be a little late and asked him to start without him. One of the employees dashingly filled glasses and raised a toast to the prosperity of the tourism business. Everyone cheered, supported him, and emptied the flute. Then the deputy director took the role of toastmaster and asked to fill the glasses again. The young man only wanted to make a speech as the door to the room fell off and the director entered. The man welcomed everyone and said, "And I can have a splash. I want to celebrate with you." Cindy looked at the entered man and felt that her body was pierced as if by hundreds of needles. The girl recognized the man immediately. She suppressed the exclamation within her and lowered her eyes. Cindy tried to calm her breathing. In the meantime, the boss came in and, seeing the new employee, exclaimed, "What beauties we have working for us. I'll sit next to the new girl with my staff. We have to be on the same footing." And then the fun began. One toast after another followed. Everyone cheerfully applauded every speech. And meanwhile, on the floor of the exhausted new boss dragged her into the office, where he closed the door on the lock. After that, the man began to carefully undo the buttons on the white blouse. And then he saw a familiar scar on her chest. The owner of the office was confused. He had seen such a scar in the form of a triangle only on one girl. Cindy, seeing how dumbfounded the man was, she said in an inebriated voice, "What are you, Sebastian?" He stopped. "Go on." Cindy, "Well, it's impossible. I've been looking all over for you. I can see how I've looked. Now I can only see that you are late female employees and then dragged to your office to have fun." With a grin, said the girl. Then she lowered her head and fell asleep. The girl woke up on the couch. She threw the blanket and saw that she was wearing the same clothes that she had worn at the corporate party. The girl looked around and immediately recognized the setting. This was Sebastian's apartment. Cindy tried to get up, but immediately felt her head split in two. She groaned involuntarily and closed her eyes, and at the same moment she caught the smell of fresh emergency coffee. The girl opened her eyes again and saw Sebastian in front of her, who was holding her nose. The young man walked over and knelt down in front of the guest. And then the man handed the girl a cup of coffee and offered to bolster her strength. The girl refused the huge drink and asked for a glass of plain water. Hearing Cindy's request, Sebastian laughed and said that yesterday she had too much to drink. This statement made the girl angry, and the guest said, "Didn't you pour me some water yesterday? You greased his face and his tail," and fanning his tail. "I won't deny it, but I've lost myself. I'm a man, and I'm not a stranger to humanity. If you were with me, I wouldn't need any woman. Now tell me what happened. Although I know what happened, I'm interested in something else. Why haven't you been in touch with me? How do you know what happened that day? Did you stop answering me? Your number was out of range. As soon as I arrived, I went straight to your place. but there were new tenants. I went to the neighbors who told me someone threw acid in your face. And then you and your mom, in a hurry, sold the apartment and moved out. It wasn't hard to find out who the perpetrator was. I went straight to my wife, and she confessed. She thought I was going to live with her after that, but I filed for divorce. That's my whole story. And now it's your turn. Do you remember my question? What's your answer? I didn't want to live then. You should have seen me at that moment. People looked away from me in horror. You can't imagine how hard it was to bear. And then my mom decided she was going to do whatever it took to make sure I could move on. So she sold the apartment. And with the money, I had several plastic surgeries. You joined my firm on purpose. No, I didn't even know you owned the firm. I just came to earn money here because the salary is higher than in our provincial town. When I saw you, I was stunned. I was really shocked at that moment. And when you started calling me again, I hated you. I mean, your wife said you were a womanizer. And now it's kind of true. Christina always had a way of slandering me. I only cheated on her twice during my marriage. One time was when I was drunk. And the second time, you already know that you and I were intimate. I told you before that I've been without a woman's affection for a long time. Now tell me, what should we do with you? I've been thinking about you all this time. I could have started a family many times, but I didn't. Somewhere subconsciously, I was waiting to meet you. Cindy listened to Sebastian in silence. She could see that at this moment, the man was speaking sincerely. The young woman sat down on the couch and took Sebastian's head with her hands, held it out to her, and then kissed him on the lips. The girl didn't care about anything right now. She wanted to be in the arms of this man. And in a few minutes, the couple lay in each other's arms. They enjoyed the passion that possessed them, and only after a while were able to tear themselves away from each other. Young people lay and breathed heavily. And then Sebastian embraced the woman, and looking into her eyes, asked, "Will you marry me?" "I guess I don't know." Laughing, the girl said, "Oh, that's how you are. I'm seriously proposing marriage to her." And she's laughing. "Now I will bite you everywhere with deliberate seriousness," said the man, and began to shower his beloved with tender kisses. Afterwards, the couple had a long talk with each other. Cindy learned that Sebastian, after the divorce, took a loan and organized a travel agency where he is very rarely, since there is still his main job. He said that he had taken a job teaching French at a university. The young people would still talk for a long time, but then Cindy's phone rang. The girl answered it as she heard the voice of Sebastian's deputy, who sternly pronounced that she was late for work. The landlord, hearing this, laughed and picked up Cindy's phone, and then informed her that the employee was out on vacation and it was being decided whether she would want to work at all. After this call, the man turned to his lover and said that they were going to visit Cindy's mother the other day, as soon as he had settled his affairs, and then buy tickets and go all together to the sea. The girl looked at the chosen one and thought that perhaps fate had given them a second chance to be together forever. And after that, Cindy called her mom, and as soon as she heard her voice, she mumbled, "You said some time ago that you should be warned in advance. If I'm going with my lover, that's what I'm doing now. We're coming with Sebastian this week. He sends his love to you. So, Mammy, take a vacation, and we'll all go to the sea together. By the way, your future son-in-law said he doesn't accept any objections. I think this news made you happy. You don't even know how much. I love you, my family." With tears in her eyes from happiness, said the woman.